Hi, I'm Jen,
I'm Luna.
And I'm Ishtar.
and you're listening to Every Rom Com, the podcast where we have fun taking romantic comedies seriously.
This week on Every Rom Com, we're taking a Christmas dream vacation to the Czech spa town of Karlovy.
We'll talk about how brushes with death can teach us to live more fully.
And we'll learn about the careers of Queen Latifah, LL Cool J, Wayne Wang, and more as we discuss the life-affirming 2006 romantic comedy Last Holiday. Hello, you two.
Hello.
Wow, I'm so excited. I didn't even think that this was going to happen, at least not as soon as it did, but I'm today welcoming my brother to the podcast for the first time ever. And his lovely wife, Luna, is coming back again. She's been on a couple episodes, so welcome, guys.
Well, thank you.
So I'm going to read my brother's official introduction first before I just start telling you random things about his childhood because, that'll be more official. So this is my brother's official introduction. So Ishtar has lived a rich and strange life. The main catalyst is perhaps the NDE, that's near-death experience, that he experienced at age 13, which over the next few years contributed to a serious interest in spirituality, the adoption of various spiritual practices, and entering an ashram at age 18. While the sense of inner wholeness has been the focus, things rich and strange came along for the ride in the form of precognitive seeing, telepathy, ghosts, lucid dreams, and the wild and improbable manifestation of desires. For Ishtar, synchronicity is a very real happening beyond the explanatory framework of chance. These days, Ishtar lives in Portugal with Luna, teaching meditation and providing astrological readings. And you can find my brother Ishtar's work. He has a meditation website, www.ascension-meditation.com, and astrology website, www.awakenedlightastrology.com. And I will put those both in the show notes so that you can also look them up in the show notes. And let's see, what inspired you to come on this episode of the podcast, Ishtar? Like, why this movie?
Oh, well, actually, because I've seen it so many times, and, it's not necessarily in my top 10 movies of all time list, but sometimes it kind of is, uh, mainly because I love the theme, and I seem to be enamored with any story in which a character is facing death or facing imminent death or getting in touch with mortality, and, it serves as the spark to wake them up to, you know, be actually who they're meant to be, and
Yeah.
get off their ass a little bit, and stop having their life be so hemmed in by the fears and social constructions that we've kind of adopted into our minds. So that's why I love it. And it also
Yeah.
has food heavily involved as part of the film, and that's always been a favorite thing too. And mix that with a beautiful historic European spa town, and you've almost got a perfect trifecta to catch my interest. So
I guess that's true. I didn't think about it like that before, but yeah. And so I know all about what's going on with your life, but I'm going to ask you a few questions just so the listeners can know. So like what kinds of work are you doing these days with meditation and astrology?
well, yes, the meditation, I basically, well, I'm just teaching it for the most part, or I offer, uh, in addition to that, as an outgrowth, sometimes to people who don't necessarily do any of the methods that I teach, get in touch with me because they're having really, really weird or strange experiences, sometimes experiences which can alarm them a bit and are falling outside of things under the aegis of conventional medical stuff. So, i.e., mystical experiences, or if anyone out there is familiar with the word kundalini, a lot of people talk to me about those sorts of things, and that can be quite unsettling. And I've had those experiences, and I've had them to the degree that I know that they're not going to harm you, especially if you do X, Y, and Z. And so I have, it's a joy for me to teach people meditation and to uh, talk people through those sorts of things. And the meditation is, really, I don't even think of it as being something that you do for a reason anymore, to necessarily to get to a particular goal. But that said, it's wonderful to watch people kind of get reconnected with their primordial innocence. Or, it's wonderful to watch people actually relax for the first time in weeks, months, sometimes even years, and then be able to have for themselves a means to repeat that as much as possible.
Yeah.
So that gives me a lot of joy. I've always, it's fun to sort of teach people how to fish in that way, and then get emails every now and then from people saying, "Hey, it's been 6 months, and this, that, and the other thing has happened," and very heartwarming to get those sorts of correspondences. And the astrology stuff is something that I never, necessarily would have considered doing publicly in some ways, but I love doing it. And strangely, I found it to be very effective in ways that seem to be beyond, confirmation bias and the usual uh, issues one would associate with that sort of thing. Mainly, I do that because I sort of, some people maybe might focus in a certain area of life, and it seems that even without putting it out that much, I tend to get a lot of people who are interested in kind of knowing what their life purpose might be, or they seem to be already on that track, but they're looking for a little bit of refinement in it. And so that's kind of what my astrological practice touches on, issues of reconnecting with the song of your soul, or the songs of your soul, and kind of getting insight into maybe the different ways that might play out for a person. And that's
Yeah.
the joy I get from that.
So I'll just put out there too that I practice the same meditation that Ishtar does. We learned around the same time, but I definitely did not dive in with the same seriousness that he did. So I never joined an ashram, but I do use ascension meditation also, and it's very effective for me. So if you're interested in learning about that, like, you can go ahead and visit Ishtar's website and learn a little bit more about that. It's a great practice that I found anyway to be very transformative, I would say, and also just offering some kind of peace. Also, he once Ishtar gave me an astrological reading, and I really should have written it down, because I'll sometimes sort of half remember something you told me and be like, "Oh, that was interesting," but I don't remember the whole thing anymore, and I kind of wish I had it. So, oh well.
That was in that zone before I'd quite gotten a handle on using a recording app. So
No,
yeah,
it was very interesting though, and like sometimes I'm like, I wish I remember what it said, but yeah, there you go.
well, we could do another one.
Well, we could.
Yeah.
And then I also wanted to mention Luna, who's been on the show before. I believe you were on Lost in Translation and are now streaming. I think just the 2
Yes,
episodes, right? Now you're
that's
number
right.
3. Woo. But
Yay.
I wanted to mention Luna's got some new things going on too now. Luna, like, you just received, I believe, your yoga teacher certification. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. This summer.
Yeah, and you have a website. It says yogawithluna.com, which I'll
That's
also put in
right.
the show notes. And what kinds of things are you offering right now for that?
Well, right now I'm offering classes via Zoom, and I'm offering both group classes and also private classes. So I'll have some community classes that people can join online, and then you can also get in touch with me if you'd like to have a private class.
And what kind of yoga are you teaching right now, or is it various kinds?
Well, I just teach hatha yoga, which is really an umbrella term for physical yoga, but I'm not part of a specific lineage, so just different poses and breathing practices to help you come closer to yourself and feel at home in mind, body, and spirit, really.
Cool. And you guys are both living in Portugal, and I really want to visit you sometime.
You should.
Yeah. So hopefully that will happen one way or another. Yeah, I'm really glad to have both of you on the show. And so before we begin the show today, though, we've been talking. These are Christmas rom com series, so we've been just talking about favorite holiday movies. So just really quick, like, what are some of your favorite holiday movies around this time of year, or do you have any?
Yeah, I actually really like Die Hard. It's a holiday movie, but we often watch. I think we watch Last Holiday pretty much every year or so.
Yeah,
together.
Yeah,
and then there are others.
And certainly, it's only probably a Christmas movie because of its original release date. The Lord of the Rings ends up going in there,
and Harry Potter as well. Several of them,
and certainly an old favorite is, of course, The Muppet Christmas Carol.
Yeah,
that can't. It's hard to beat that version.
Yeah, Michael Caine.
Yeah.
We just watched Lord of the Rings for Thanksgiving too. By the way,
it works the whole
wonderful
fall, winter. If there's, it's perfect. And I still go back to It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah,
often.
Yeah, we talked about that on the last show, and Sybil hates it, so I was very sad. Okay. Okay, so before we get started with today's episode, just a reminder, as usual on the show, we'll have a spoiler-free section at the beginning of the episode, and we'll let you know when the spoiler section begins.
We'd also like to remind you that you can follow the podcast on social media. Our Facebook page is Every Rom Com, podcast and blog. Our Instagram is at Every Rom Com, and our Twitter handle is at Every Rom Com Pod.
And as always, you can find the podcast at everyromcom.com, send us feedback at everyromcom.com, and if you like what you hear, please rate, review, and subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts. And now, let's listen to a little bit of the trailer for Last Holiday.
Georgia Bird spent her life...
Morning, Miss Bird.
Mr. Williams?
...dreaming of possibilities.
I suggest you get with the program, Miss Bird. Yeah.
You're just scared of some man getting a hold of that booty of yours.
Until the day...
I was wondering sometime if you're free. I'll get it. Oh!
Fate.
This can't be right.
Changed everything.
I got 3 weeks to live? I feel great. I just finished a fat flush. Remember you said life was too short to live the way I do? You see, Mr. Damien. Excuse me, would you mind?
Yeah.
I quit.
I'm sure a disciplined woman such as yourself has a very useful purpose for this money.
I'm just gonna blow it.
Welcome to Grand Hotel Pupp.
Y'all really say it like that? Poop.
I know that you will find our presidential suite most comfortable.
Did I just give you a ridiculously large tip?
Yes.
Bye.
Are you all right, Madam Bell?
Yeah. I just love these sheets. I was just taking them for a little ride around the block. Yeah. Make me international.
I haven't seen Georgia around for a couple of days. Have you seen her?
Give my money.
Hello, sister. Who the hell is she? Mademoiselle Bird. Very rich.
Ooh, look at that. Will he have the same specials tomorrow night?
No.
I guess I better try them all tonight then.
Toot? Oh, no.
Toot, baby. Toot sweet.
From Paramount Pictures.
Ooh, I've been waiting my whole life to do something like this.
You're invited.
Slow down!
On a holiday.
I got a gut feeling about that woman. She's trouble.
Fit for a queen.
I'm going base jumping tomorrow, Bob.
Okay. What do you think of that trailer there?
Very 2006.
Yeah.
In some way. I don't know why exactly.
Honestly, the whole thing feels like even earlier to me, like earlier than 2006. It feels like almost like a 90s movie. Like when I found out it was made in 2006, I was shocked. But pretty funny trailer. And if I had played the rest of it, it basically spoiled the entire movie. So, yeah, so I can't even tell you what's in the rest of it because this is the spoiler-free section. We care more about you than the trailer does, listeners. So, okay, so some basic information about the movie. Last Holiday came out in 2006. It was directed by Wayne Wang, and it was written by Jeffrey Price and Peter S. Seaman, based on the 1950 screenplay by J.B. Priestley. And it stars Queen Latifah, LL Cool J, Timothy Hutton, and Gerard Depardieu.
And then just to tell you a little bit about the basic premise, without giving you any spoilers, the movie focuses on Georgia Bird. She's an ordinary woman. She works retail. She attends church, and her hobby is cooking. She's a very quiet and reserved person, but secretly she keeps a possibilities book, which is full of dreams for the future. The only thing is she doesn't follow up on any of her dreams, including her crush on a coworker named Sean. One day she hits her head at work and is given a CT scan which reveals that she has a rare, fatal condition called Lampington's disease and only a few weeks left to live. So Georgia decides that instead of living out the rest of her life in an ordinary way, she will cash in her retirement fund and live out one of the dreams in her possibilities book, which is flying to the Grand Hotel Pupp in the Czech Republic for a luxurious last holiday.
And some interesting facts about the movie. So the screenplay was based on the 1950 movie Last Holiday, which starred Alec Guinness. The story in that movie is quite different, and I tried to watch it. It's on the Criterion channel right now. And I'm sorry, but I'm not easily bored, and I found it boring. I was like, ugh. And Ish, you had the same experience, it sounds like.
Yes.
Yeah. And we both like Alec Guinness. So I'm sure we both were invested in trying to make this experience work. But
yeah, he needed to get on over to the River Kwai because it just wasn't working.
Anyway, yeah, I'm glad that they made the changes that they did. But the screenplay itself was in development for something like 23 years. It was originally going to be a movie starring John Candy. That's how long the movie was in development. And after John Candy passed away, it was kind of dormant. And then Queen Latifah's agent actually came across the script and suggested that it would be rewritten for her. And I think that's all to the good. I think it just makes it it makes it such a fresh story. And telling it from the perspective of a woman changes it a lot. A Black woman changes it a lot. It makes it more vibrant, really, I think.
I agree.
Oh, yes.
And then eventually the movie was released in January 13 of 2006. Why was this movie not released before Christmas is my question.
It's crazy. That is absolutely crazy.
Doesn't make sense.
Okay. Slapping my head at that.
Yeah, you could market it as it takes place around from Christmas to New Year's. You could market it as a Christmas movie, and yet you miss the opportunity entirely and release it after Christmas.
Yeah, well, that's the idea. You take 23 years to develop a thing and then only to make sure that you release it at probably one of the worst possible times you could. Deep Hollywood logic.
Yeah, yep. So in the end, the movie cost $45 million to make and only grossed $43.3 million. So it actually lost money in this case. Money. Yeah, but it has found a place in our hearts nonetheless. Yes. And and then there's a lot of food in the movie, and it was actually prepared by chefs from the Food Network. And the Food Network at the time had recipes from the film on their website. So it was kind of like a cross-promotional kind of a deal. So that's kind of interesting. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about our opinion of the film. So first of all, I only saw this film this last year. When did you guys first see the movie?
I first saw the film in late 2006, I think. Wow. I think it came to me in one of those original Netflix mail-in DVD things.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
And what was your impression of it when you first saw it? And
I was, I don't know, it was actually snowy outside. I actually watched it, I think I watched it before Christmas. And so it really made a lot of sense. And it was just a lovely, lovely film to watch. And at the time I was living in sort of a meditation center in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and it was very, there was snow outside, and it just was great. Thematically, it was similar to so much of what I was up to at the time, and also I was definitely still in kind of a chef mode myself back then. And I have to admit that I quite enjoyed from time to time watching Emerald's show. So yeah, I enjoyed it. It was fun. I didn't have big expectations.
And Luna, how about you? When did you first see it?
Well, I don't remember exactly, but it was Ishtar who showed it to me for the first time. Must have been some years back, but I really enjoyed it. I mean, it definitely feels like an early 2000s film to me because of the fashion or some of the music, some of the actors. But I really love it, and I did enjoy the casting, and it's just the theme just feels so universal and so touching. It just really struck a chord with me.
Cool. And I saw it this year, actually, when I was looking around for more movies to be on the podcast. So when I watched it, I swore like I would have dated this movie at 98 if I had like watched it without knowing when it was from. Because like some of the humor and some of the we'll talk about them later, but some of the scenes that are like the comic scenes are like seem a little dated to me. Like not offensive dated, but like just like cheesy. A little like,
what are you thinking about? Like snowboarding?
Like the snowboarding sequence, yes.
Yeah.
Like that's one. And then there's this like dream sequence, fantasy sequence where she's imagining LL Cool J like licking his lips at her. Like those things, I'm like, oh, this feels very 90s to me. This feels very dated. But I really, the performances definitely like impressed me of Queen Latifah and Gerard Depardieu in particular both stuck out to me in the movie. Everyone did a fine job, but like those were the two that most stuck out, I guess. I think like some of the tone is a bit uneven for me, and there's like part like the thing at the end we'll talk about way later. Like, but overall I liked it. But I was like, I was kind of surprised to hear that it was such a favorite of yours, Ishtar. But then when you explained why, I'm like, oh yeah, that all makes sense. These like hits your buttons.
Yes.
And then have you enjoyed the movie over the years? It sounds like you guys have rewatched it and so forth.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Yeah, actually seeing Gerard Depardieu cook or anything related to food in Gerard Depardieu is very pleasing to me. I don't know why exactly, but it just is exceedingly so. So like this does not break down rationally. It's a totally aesthetical kind of thing. Hearing him sort of like yelling in French, kind of barking in that guttural way that he does in a chef's outfit. I might be having past life memories of working in such a kitchen. Who knows? But it's nice. It's all aesthetic.
Nice. That's all you need. Gerard Depardieu yelling in French in a chef's outfit and cooking.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit now about the cast and crew of the film. And so first of all, I want to talk about the film's director, Wayne Wang. And wow, like I had no idea like about the richness of his filmography and the kind of diversity of his filmography. It's like all over the place. So he's born and raised in Hong Kong, and he moved to the US at the age of 17. He wrote and directed his first two features and another early feature. So his early features include A Man, a Woman, and a Killer from 1975, Chan is Missing from 1982, and then I love the title of this one, Life is Cheap, but Toilet Paper is Expensive.
I think he's presaging the early stages of the pandemic in America in some way.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
Well, that one's from 1989, so he was really early on that.
Very early.
And then some of the other things he directed early on but did not write include Dim Sum, A Little Bit of Heart, and Eat a Bowl of Tea. And I watched Dim Sum for this was and that was very interesting. And the direction was impressive on that. And then in 1993, he directed The Joy Luck Club, which, was a kind of a watershed moment in Asian American cinema. And we talked about that a little bit on our Crazy Rich Asians episode. And then Other films that he directed before Last Holiday include Smoke, Anywhere But Here, and Made in Manhattan. So another rom-com, Made in Manhattan. So that's all over the place, though. Yeah. Yeah, you're laughing-ish. Have you seen any of these movies?
I saw Made in Manhattan in the frickin' movie theater. Like second or third weekend, probably not the first, but second or third. So yes, and that's the only one besides the Joy Luck Club that I've seen of his filmography.
Well, yeah, they're like all over the place. Like Smoke is a very like sort of 90s indie, like talking heavy movie starring Harvey Keitel. I mean, they're just like, he's done the gamut, really. And then Dim Sum that I watched, it's like got a lot of like very beautiful shots and like kind of meditative, poetic filming style. So it's wow, it's just, yeah. And then Made in Manhattan, and then Last Holiday. So, and then after Last Holiday, he's continued to direct, but his stuff is it's not very high profile stuff, but his projects included Snowflower and The Secret Fan. And most recently, he directed a film called Coming Home Again in 2019, which is another story that involves food. So that might be interesting to watch. And coming up, he has written a script called A Concise Chinese English Dictionary for Lovers, and that is in pre-production. So I'd be interested. I want to continue to kind of explore his filmography because it's like very interesting. And I don't know if he has necessarily a trademark per se, but I've enjoyed what I've seen.
Yeah.
I'd like to see Dim Sum.
Yeah, me too.
Yes.
That was the one that called to me.
That's on Criterion right now, but there's not as much food as you would expect from the title, I hate to say. So there is food, but not as much as you might hope
not
for.
Not like the eat, drink, man, woman sort of league.
Not as much there.
No. So the screenwriters, Jeffrey Price and Peter S. Seaman, appear to be regular writing partners. Some of their other screenplays include Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Doc Hollywood, Wild Wild West, the 2000 How the Grinch Stole Christmas, and Shrek the Third.
Also all over the place.
Yes.
Wow. I think I like all of these people now because they're so all over the place. I think they'd be interesting to have some dim sum with. And to sort of add to the mix, the original screenplay from 1950, which it's based on, was written by a fellow named John Boynton Priestley. And I'd never heard of J.B. Priestley, but he lived a great long time and was a fairly famous British novelist, essayist, playwright, and screenwriter. In fact, he has 142 credits on IMDb.
Wow.
These are both adaptations of some of his original work. And apparently, in addition to The Last Holiday, he's well known for the novel The Old Dark House, which I've never read, but that inspired 2 film adaptations. Digging more deeply into this man's life, he was something of a left-winger. And he actually, during the Second World War, he was also a radio broadcaster. And apparently his radio broadcasts were considered vital for keeping the morale of the British public up during the Blitz.
Wow.
And during the lean times at the beginning of the war. But he was, for decades before that and after, a committed socialist. And in fact, so left-wing that he was actually, by Orwell, considered a communist. and was the British government had Orwell write up a list of people who he thought were too communistic, who might denigrate the name of a more left center sort of policies. So interesting that Orwell gets mixed in with this Priestley as well in that way. So yep, that's J.B. Priestley.
So that brings us to Queen Latifah, who plays Georgia Bird. So Queen Latifah was born Dana Lane Owens. She grew up in New Jersey. She began singing in the church choir. So she's well known as a singer, songwriter, actress, and producer. She released her debut album in 1989, All Hail the Queen, with the single Ladies First, which I listened to last night. It was really nice.
Nice.
And some of her other albums included Nature of a Sister, which was released in 91, Black Rain from 93, Order in the Court, which is from 98, the Dana Owens album from 2004, Traveling Light from 2007, Persona from 2009, And some of her most successful songs include Ladies First and UNITY.
Yeah, I like the song UNITY. I listened to that the other day, and I thought that was a really cool song. Yeah,
I did
and
too, like with the lyrics, just very deep, very powerful.
Yeah, and feminist, I would say.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah. So Queen Latifah's first movie role was as LaShawn in Jungle Fever, which is from 91. She then became a series regular on the show Living Single, which ran from 1993 to 1998. Her first starring role in a movie was Set It Off, which was in 96. Some of her other roles before Last Holiday include Brown Sugar, Chicago, for which she got an Oscar nomination, Bringing Down the House, Barbershop 2, and Beauty Shop. So after Last Holiday, she continued appearing in different movies. So some of those include Hairspray, The Perfect Holiday, in which she plays Mrs. Christmas, the Ice Age movies, Just Right, The Secret Life of Bees, Girls Trip, and then she was also on a few TV shows, so Star and The Equalizer. Now, currently, she has 3 projects in post-production, The Tiger Rising, Hustle, and End of the Road. And she also has one that is in pre-production, and that one's called Paper Chase.
Okay, and Ish, you're going to tell us a little bit about LL Cool J then.
No, the other half of our romance, LL Cool J, whose character is named Sean Williams. But, personally, it'd have to be around 1991. So right in the thick of my childhood, I can't get Mama Said Knock You Out of my head still if I go to the early 90s in my memory bank. But anyway, he's done so much more than that. But he was born James Todd Smith, and LL Cool J is an acronym for Ladies Love Cool James. He's a New Yorker. He signed to Def Jam Records in 1984, quite young. His first album was Radio in 1985, subsequently released 12 other albums and 2 compilation albums, including Bigger and Deffer, Walking with a Panther, Mama Said Knock You Out, of course, 14 Shots to the Dome, and Goat, Greatest of All Time, and 10. And of course, some of the famous songs include the twice mentioned Mama Said Knock You Out, Doing It, Around the Way Girl, I'm That Type of Guy, Love You Better, Going Back to Cali.
Yeah, a lot of those are ones that I recognize like immediately, like when I listened to them. And I didn't realize they were all associated with him necessarily until I listened to them again. I was like, oh, wow.
There's a reason that he recently got nominated, inducted, I should say, into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Oh, cool.
He's been fairly prolific enough to earn that. His first film appearance as himself in Crush Groove, never saw it. Movies before Last Holiday include Woo, Halloween H2O, 20 years later, Deep Blue Sea.
Yeah, love his appearance in Deep Blue Sea.
Yes, that's probably the one that has the deepest mark. Though I do remember his part in Any Given Sunday. So he's appeared in the TV show In the House, and also the movies Any Given Sunday, Deliver Us from Eva, SWAT, and Mindhunters. But people who've been watching TV more regularly than me in the last few years might know him from being on NCIS Los Angeles for about 12 years now. And that's still going. So that's...
Yeah, I don't watch any of those shows, but those shows are like super popular. So still.
They are. Yes.
Yeah, they played them here in Portugal.
Oh, yeah?
So.
Yep, they love them. They know the United States through these shows in part.
Cool.
Yeah.
So then we've got a whole bunch of other notable actors that appear in this movie. It's one of those movies where you're like, oh, it's that guy and that lady that I recognize. And hey, who's he? Some of the main people, though, are Gerard Depardieu, and he plays Chef Didier, who is the chef at the fancy resort that Queen Latifah's character visits. He's a French actor with 250 acting credits on IMDb. And a lot of his earlier work is what he's most known for in the U.S., includes Cyrano de Bergerac, Green Card, Germinal, and Camille Claudel. He's done a ton of work in the French language, too, and he's continued to work, so long career. Then we have Timothy Hutton, who plays Matthew Kragen, the kind of antagonist who owns the retail store that Georgia works at. And he has appeared in Ordinary People, Beautiful Girls, The Haunting of Hill House, and How to Get Away with Murder, among other things. So then we have Giancarlo Esposito. He appears as Senator Dillings, who is one of Georgia's senators and who is happens to be at the resort at the same time. He is recognizable from Breaking Bad, The Mandalorian, and he's had roles in many of Spike Lee's early movies, including Do the Right Thing. And he's just been in a lot of things, though. He has 186 acting credits on IMDb, so he's everywhere. And then Alicia Witt plays Ms. Burns, who is having an affair with Matthew Kragen, the retail CEO guy. And she was in Urban Legend, Vanilla Sky, and Orange is the New Black, among other things. And then Lee noticed right away there's an actor called Ranjit Chowdhury, and he plays Dr. Gupta, who diagnoses Georgia with Lampinson's disease. And he has 48 credits on IMDb, but Lee noticed him because he played Vikram on The Office. If you remember the part where Michael was a telemarketer. So he was a very memorable character for Lee and myself, actually. And he apparently he died last year in 2020, so that's sad. He was a talented actor, and he also wrote and acted in a movie called Sam and Me. So, yeah, I would like to see more of his other work too, especially what he wrote. And then, of course, we have a cameo in the movie by Emeril Lagasse, who is a celebrity chef with restaurants in New Orleans, Las Vegas, Pennsylvania, and Florida. And has hosted a number of cooking shows, including Essence of Emeril, Emeril Live, and Eat the World with Emeril Lagasse. And I guess he's known for something called New Orleans cuisine. We can talk about later if you want to, if Ishtar, if you have knowledge about Emeril, but yeah. And he's also appeared in other movie and TV shows, including The Princess and the Frog and the show Treme, which is based around New Orleans. So, yeah. And then I'm not even finished. I'm sorry. There's just too many people in this. I also noticed Jane Addams is in the movie, who appeared in the movie Happiness. Matt Ross, who is the creepy guy in Big Love, shows up as George's terrible boss. And then there's our actor Michael Nouri plays a congressman. And another cameo, Smokey Robinson, shows up and sings The Tracks of My Tears at a performance that Georgia attends. So this just is laden with famous people. Yeah. Okay, so that's our cast and crew. And now we're going to start getting into the movie. So you guys ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so Last Holiday opens at a church, and I think that's pretty significant for the movie.
Yes.
Yeah. God and religion is pretty a running theme throughout the movie. And in the first church scene, we hear a choir singing, and the minister calls out Georgia for not singing in full voice. Kind of a nice metaphor.
Yes.
And we get then pretty deftly done an introduction to George's life.
They did it well. They did a lot of things without going into too much exposition.
Yeah.
They wouldn't even need to have as much dialogue as they had actually in the film. They could have just, the visuals and her actions were enough to tell everybody in the audience that this is what's going on. I love the scene in which she makes this wonderful Creole roasted. It's not the duck hash. It's actually the thing she makes at home, which I forget what it is. She's cooking at home.
The chicken tupa or the poulet chupatalis that she makes with
I suppose
Emeril?
it's probably poulet chupatalis. Yes.
Yeah.
And she makes this beautiful meal, but it's for her neighbors, for the old grandpa and the young fellow who lives next door, and then for herself, it's lean cuisine in the microwave.
Yeah.
And that is enough to say like what this person, what a bunch of her life is about. Is, she's both, she's sacrificing, but she's too sacrificing. She's not allowing herself to eat the marrow of life, so to speak.
Yeah. She takes joy in producing the food, and then she photographs the food and puts it in her possibilities book, but she doesn't eat the food. Yeah. And she says she always eats the lean cuisine. She never eats the food.
Yes.
Yeah. And the movie's set in New Orleans, and I was listening to the commentary, and they said they were particularly careful to show a different side of New Orleans, not the tourist side, but the side of like everyday life. And I thought that was pretty cool. It was still recognizable to me, but like not in a cliched movie kind of a way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they had the streetcar, but you kind of have to have a little bit of specialized knowledge to know about that. And it wasn't on Bourbon Street or anything like that. And, she's walking by kind of an above ground cemetery on her way home.
Yeah.
But it's in the working class part of town, so
Yeah.
it's really nice.
And that's something I appreciate about it, just giving that perspective, like that's not glamorous.
Yeah, she's even like using coupons to buy her food.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And she's like she gets home and her neighbor boy says that he heard gunshots, but her car is okay. like
Yeah.
it's giving you a real lived in sense of her world.
Mm-hmm.
And she's wearing these kind of frumpy, like regular people clothes, but she is a little frumpy too. Like very covered up, very neutral colors like brown and so forth.
And she's feeding old people, like hanging out at her. And the giant retail place is like cavernous and barely peopled with anybody shopping. And that's really quite real.
Mm-hmm.
in truth, there's not that many people looking at stuff, and the people who are there are the older folks. And that, of course, gets her in trouble with her boss feeding them.
So you're mentioning her job, at Kragen's.
Yes,
and
Kragen's,
she's supposed to be selling the cookware, and like to help with that, she's giving the cooking demos. But her boss is like, stop feeding the moochers or something like that.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Right, and they don't make it explicit, but you can kind of infer that this has only recently become a Kragen's department store. It was probably a local or regionally owned shop that couldn't make it. This is inferred in her conversation with her more immediate boss, the junior asshole boss.
Yeah,
and he's saying like, that's why we're here is because obviously it wasn't making money, so Kragen comes in and probably buys it at a fire sale price or something like that. Commentary on the realities of American economic life then and today.
And the other reason we know that the boss is an asshole is this was still in the era of filmmaking. And actually, like, this is maybe past the era of filmmaking where a cell phone indicated someone was an asshole. Maybe that's another reason I thought it was a 90s movie, because the boss is always on the cell phone, and the cell phone is associated with him being a jerk. And that was such a 90s trope. And I think by 2006, that was maybe not a trope anymore, because there were people using cell phones a lot. I don't know.
Yeah, but his flip phone, he said, cost $400.
Yeah.
So, for the thing I could get at Fred Meyer for $25 today. So, yeah.
Let's see. So she's living this pretty quiet life. She's not really appreciated by her boss at work. But also at work, she has a crush. She has a work friend, and then she has a crush on this guy named Sean, played by LL Cool J. And he works in, I don't know, selling grills or something. He must sell
outdoor
other
stuff.
things.
He's
outdoor
chairs
stuff.
And outdoor stuff, yeah.
Yeah, and like we see this scene where she's like trying to approach him, but instead of actually like, talking to him, like asking him out or something, she ends up buying this like expensive grill. And like later she takes this grill home, and like her neighbor Darius is like, what are you doing with like this other grill or something? And like, you just bought a grill last week or something. And I'm like, no wonder this lady's flipping coupons if she's always buying grills instead of like talking to this guy.
That's right. Well, to Sean, she says, well, that wasn't a grill. That was hibachi for when I travel. And so I have to buy this more permanent grill,
Yeah.
That was her excuse.
Anyway, like that's not going too well. She's not acting on it. Okay, and then let's talk about George's Possibilities book. So,
ooh, yeah.
Yeah, we first kind of see the Possibilities book when Georgia is taking a picture of the poulet chupitalis that she's just fed to her neighbor and puts it in with the other pictures of food in her book. And then Darius is like, oh, what's that? And she's like, it's kind of private. He sneaks a look at it. He's looking through it. There's pictures of like hotels, the hotel we see later in the movie, and pictures of her food. And then we see pictures of like LL Cool J's face and her face on people getting married on their bodies.
Yeah.
How cheesy is that? The sort of pre-Photoshop clumsiness of it.
Yes.
It's touching. It's touching. I love it.
I think it's very charming.
Yeah.
I kind of think of this movie as, in some ways, it's not the best example I'd hope for, but in some ways it is a movie that survived the shift that happened around 9/11. Everything got so dark.
Oh.
And
cynical?
So cynical and dark. But before that, there was this kind of innocent, maybe something, quite naive as well, but an innocent hope in a lot of the American films. Even the films of 1999 that could get kind of dark, I think had a bit more of a lightness to them, because at least even in the dark ones, or the ones that had that aesthetic, there was some sort of potential of connecting to a higher meaning at the end of it, even in American Beauty to a certain extent.
Well, I would say in 2004 we had Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind and Garden State both had like a kind of optimistic spirit too, though. I think we weren't totally without.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
But yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah. So about the possibility books, like, have you guys ever kept a book like this, like, or a vision board or a Pinterest board or something similar? Like,
yeah,
Yes.
I mean, vision board for sure. But I feel like the possibilities book would be like a step up, to just have an entire book dedicated to, manifesting our visions. I think it'd be interesting, actually. I'm inspired to try one sometime.
Yeah. And how about you, Ishtar? Have you kept something similar?
Oh, absolutely. Although I've done most of that stuff, I think, just up in the old mind. I enjoy putting things in that visual format. And I even did the thing that, Jim Carrey did when he was young. And he wrote himself a check for $20 million acting services rendered.
Oh, wow.
Back in the 80s or early 90s when he was a nobody. And he said, I'm going to get it within this many years. And then when that year came, he got the money from, wasn't Ace Ventura, but one of the other ones he did in 94. He got paid quite a bit. And then he took that check and he put it in his dad's suit when they buried his dad. The one that he wrote out. But I've done stuff like that. I enjoy it.
So what form has yours taken? Like, has it been on paper or on the internet or like, okay, cool.
On paper. Yeah.
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 Yeah, I keep Pinterest boards, and I think those serve like a similar function as the possibilities board. I've done like ones of places to travel or like clothes I want to get or things like that. And I also use Pinterest for other things like just keeping track of movies and stuff. But definitely there's been like, some possibilities on there as well. And I have also made collages, like using the artist way. I've done collages of like kind of my dream life, which I have one right now. So
that's wonderful.
Yeah. And what are some things that would be in your possibilities book right now, if it's not too personal? Anything you could share with the audience?
A house.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, a house for that could serve maybe even as a meditation retreat. So yeah, that's something.
Yes, that is definitely shared, and we often share a vision of a tea house.
Yes.
Having a tea house where people can come in and eat and drink in a very meditative sort of space.
Yeah.
Yes,
nice.
that's too. And then
we'd really enjoy that.
Trains are back in my consciousness these days.
Yeah.
We took a sleeper train last year in Sweden and absolutely loved it. The experience of the sleeper train. When things open up over here in Europe, training around Europe, that's definitely
train travel.
Yes, yeah.
Nice,
be wonderful.
Yeah, European travel is definitely in my possibilities book too. Yeah, like the Starnberg Sea in particular is on my current, I guess you could say, collage vision board. So I want to go back to the Starnberg Sea outside of Munich and
great.
Check that out again, or Lake Starnberg, like to do it in English. Yeah.
Lake Starnberg,
yeah, and finishing a screenplay and getting it produced is also on my possibilities book. So I gotta get going on these things though. So as this movie reminds us. Okay, so now we're gonna get to the sort of the inciting event of the movie. So the inciting event of the movie is when Georgia bumps her head and gets a CT scan. And the reason she bumps her head is that Sean has finally come to her area of the store, smelling her food that she's been cooking for the senior citizens. And he comes to ask her out, I believe. It seems like that's what he's about to do. I like how he says her food smells like my mama's house. Like he's like sort of seduced by her food, I think.
Yes, he's like a Taurus. Yeah. Yeah.
Is that what Tauruses do?
Yeah, it's one of the things they're seduced by. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like a very high compliment.
Yes.
Yeah.
That one.
And he assumes that like her cooking is like, he tastes her cooking and he assumes that she's like this well-traveled chef based on the quality of her food. So we get an idea of how good she is from his eyes.
Yeah.
And but like in the process of like Sean trying to ask her out, Georgia like sort of like bends over to get something and hits her head on a kind of a cabinet. And she goes like, this department store apparently has like a doctor's office in it. This could be a thing. This like could be a thing that exists. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I love it. I just decided that it exists, but it is quite improbable.
Yeah.
Yeah. To have like, especially a CAT scan equipment. I mean,
well, it
unless
is a
it's like,
used CAT scan machine. They point
it
out
is
that
used,
the
but
CAT scan machine.
unless this was like, Kragen made it like the central, also the headquarters, corporate headquarters or central hub of his business empire, which I don't think he did. But if he did, then it, it's more believable. But it's expedient for the plot, so I'm good with it because I don't want them wasting time going to some hospital off site.
So the boss. Yeah, and the boss doesn't even want to like let Georgia have a CAT scan. It's only because like the doctor insists upon it that like it happens in the first place. But when the CAT scan comes out, the doctor reveals to her that she has Lampington's disease, which is not a real thing.
Yeah, in case you were wondering.
But before she even gets her CAT scan, though, there's this like really like random scene where like Sean has carried her to the doctor's office and put her in this chair, and she kind of like is groggily half waking up, and she like hears the song "Let's Get It On" in her head, and LL Cool J's like licking his lips at her and like doing sexy faces. That is cheesy.
Yeah, it's very cheesy.
Did it work for you guys tonally? Like, I'm willing to forgive it, but it was like really.
It's never worked for me. Never worked for me.
Yeah, I don't know. It is what it is, but I think it's nice to maybe reveal the depth of her affection, maybe even her desire that she hasn't allowed herself to really feel or express. So it's nice to kind of see it in a more of a visceral way, I suppose.
I guess so. Okay, that's a good. I like your your way that you've promoted this scene as belonging in the movie. I'll take it. Yeah, it didn't really work for me, but like I see what it does serve a function, so I see what you're saying there. Yep.
Yeah.
And then she finds out she has this disease, and apparently there is a cure for it. But of course, she goes then to the HMO administrator. This is before Obamacare. And the HMO administrator informs her that this is not covered and it will cost $340,000 without anesthesia.
Oof. Yes.
And if she wants to protest the decision, she hands her this like pile of books that's like several feet high and says, here's the appeals process. It's like, you have 3 weeks to live. You're going to spend it doing that now. You're not even going to get through it. So it's the real nice commentary on the state of American healthcare right there.
Yeah.
This is where we're hitched up to, like Breaking Bad, a show that doesn't happen if you can get healthcare.
Yeah.
Same deal.
Yeah, in the original British movie, there wasn't a cure. So like that wasn't even like a factor. It was just like, this is incurable. So, but in this movie they had the extra chance to like kind of be angry at the American healthcare system. So they took it.
Well, in 1950 the British already had the National Health Service. So
So yeah, now we've got Georgia kind of coming to grips with her impending death, and she goes through a few different experiences. It's interesting when she tries to tell her sister. We see her sister like only very briefly, and she doesn't even get out that she's dying. Her sister just immediately asks her, like around Christmas time, randomly, to babysit her kids because she wants to go to Nashville to become a country western singer.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes. Good foil in the family.
But what's interesting about that is her sister is shown as somebody who is trying to fulfill her dreams, the way Georgia hasn't been. So it's like, she's like, it's like, are we supposed to think her sister's selfish and bad? Maybe, but she's also doing what we're wanting Georgia to do. It's like, maybe it's all about balance. I don't know.
I think that's what they may be trying to get at, that it's all about balance, but that's true. Out of all of it, whether it's talking with her sister or going to church or seeing her underboss, Mr. Adamian, or even Sean, all of those scenes, she leaves in the same way. She's like, wait, I don't have time for even this. I just don't have time. I got to go. Being in church is not actually the thing, for instance, that is actually going to heal me in the way that I need to be healed. So, the church isn't going to do it. I have to get out of the church. I have to go. She's pushed inside, basically.
Yeah.
Well, can you explain that more? What you mean by pushed inside?
Well, yeah, it's like she has within her, she kind of knows what, she needs to do in a certain sense. Maybe she doesn't know exactly that she has to go to the Hotel Pupp. I think she comes up with that path later after she goes through these sorts of things. But like, this is her old life, going to church, being at work, unsuccessfully, trying to get with Sean, family life. She has to let go of her old life. She has to kind of go through a death because, those structures, even if they're pure and of themselves, she can't be free in those structures. She needs to get someplace else, where she can be completely different, which is the Czech Republic, apparently, in this case.
Yeah. So it could be any place in your opinion, but it just happens to be the Czech Republic.
Yeah. I mean, I think maybe for her, for whatever reason, going to meet Chef Didier, in Karlovy Vary is the thing to do.
Okay, so I just really want to quickly summarize these scenes that you're talking about, though, her past life. So she goes to the church and she starts singing a song. She just starts singing "Why," and then everyone else in the choir picks up on the song and they sing "Why," and they're all singing back up and playing the guitar, and there's women dancing in the audience and everything. And she's just singing things like, "I followed your commandments, Lord. Why in heaven's me?" I thought it was really well done musically, and it was interesting. And I was wondering, and I don't really know, is this something that would happen in this church, in a church? Would people just go with it? And I think maybe they would.
In some, yes. Yeah. Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
Absolutely.
But
I think it's unfulfilling for her because even though they're all singing, none of them can actually see her.
Yeah, they don't know what she's talking about.
They don't know what she's talking about.
Yeah.
It's isolating.
But actually, I found it, I didn't find the scenes feeling to be isolating to me, though. I found it kind of uplifting. I don't think the church is supposed to be seen as totally isolating. I mean,
not totally, but for her, I think it is. I mean,
okay, at that moment.
Isolating in the sense if it doesn't help her.
Yeah.
If it doesn't give her the thing, then it's not good enough. She has to go all the way.
I think for me, that scene represents the dark night of the soul, which is something that Ish could comment on, but it's that moment where you're really questioning, and you have this crisis of faith, one could say.
But I don't know, does she ever really question God entirely? Because she keeps talking to God throughout the movie, or is it just the church structure that you think she's questioning?
I think just God's plan more than anything, her plan for her.
I just don't feel like she loses faith though, in God, throughout the plot.
No, yeah. Definitely not.
Okay, I think, that's what I was clarifying. Yeah, because she's really it's really a religious movie compared to some movies. This is the most religious movie we've covered on the show anyway.
Wow.
which is not saying much because we don't focus on that. But most secular movies don't have a ton of religious references in them.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's more than what I'm used to.
Yeah.
Actually.
Okay, and then I really like another scene. She's recognizing that work. The scene where she recognizes that work isn't a place she needs to be anymore. She has a quitting scene where she goes to talk to Mr. Adamian, and this also seeds in some important things for later. So Mr. Adamian's her creepy boss with the cell phone. He's reading Matthew Kragen's book, Young, Hip, Rich, when she comes in. Yeah. And he's ignoring when Georgia tries to tell him that she's dying, he ignores her to take a phone call. And then I love this. She takes his phone and she freaking smashes it with her high heel. And I was a big Luddite for a while and didn't get a phone for forever. And I still get upset about people who use really poor etiquette with cell phones where they ignore humans in front of them. It really bothers me, especially when people do that to workers. Yeah, or people who are having an important conversation with them. I'm just no. And I'm probably guilty of it sometimes too. So the phone is very intoxicating. But yeah, I found that scene really fulfilling. And at the same scene, he's also playing her Matthew Kragen CD, where he's got all his like, you know, it's one of those like inspirational from a CEO CDs, like where he's telling you his rules for life. And one of them is, when is enough enough? Enough is never enough. And then Queen Latifah's character, Georgia, gets really angry and she takes the CD and she smashes it and she says, enough is enough right now, Mr. Damien. And she starts to try to tell him again that she's sick, but then she's like, you know what? Never mind. I don't have time for this. I quit. And I think it's one of the epic quitting scenes of a movie, in my opinion.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great quitting scene.
And then, like, to top this off, though, like, he tells her that she can't quit because she's like their best salesperson and they're having a terrible quarter or whatever. And
her department's the only one making profit.
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm. And so he's offering her these raises as she leaves, which increasingly escalate. This is one thing that it has in common with the 1950 Last Holiday. The boss does the same thing in that one. And I couldn't help be reminded of how like places are finally starting to raise their salaries during that right now because they're having a hard time getting workers after the COVID pandemic.
Yes.
And it's like, and he tells her that he kind of like knew that she was a valuable employee all along, but he didn't want her to hold him up for more money. And it's infuriating because that's what companies do in this economy, unfortunately, or what they were doing. So yet another commentary on our capitalist society. Yeah, and I guess that speaks to J.B. Priestley's socialism too, because it was in the original.
Yes.
Yeah. So on her way out of work, then Sean finally asks her out to a Hornets game, and she declines his offer. Even though she's nice to him, but she doesn't explain that she's sick, which like, dude, I would have told him.
Yeah. I feel like this is something that's pretty common in movies where people will just withhold information. Mm-hmm. It's like, it would just be a lot easier if people just actually talked to each other and told them what's going on.
But I guess the movie would be shorter, but yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not as frustrated. I often get frustrated with that in films, but in that spot, I'm not as frustrated.
Yeah.
Because even though she's like telling him would be great if her last thing she wanted to do was to have a genuine, intimate connection with him, I think she has to kind of die to her old self first. Otherwise, she can't actually have a connection with him. She has to do something, go through some sort of tunnel of transformation that allows her to be reborn. And I think just going is the right thing to do.
Yeah, definitely.
For the character.
That's very true.
And to love herself too, I guess.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
To find her own voice.
Yeah.
Since she was struggling to sing before.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, Georgia, after like all these things have sort of failed her, as Ishtar said, she makes the decision to go to Karlovy and the Grand Hotel Pupp, and she buys her ticket, and we see her flying on Christmas Day.
So the next section is in part deeply satisfying. So the next part of Georgia's journey is, of course, the plane trip. And we get to see her in coach on a transatlantic flight, one of those big planes with 4 in the middle and 2 on either side or something like that. And the seats just crammed too close together like sardines, like most of us have all experienced. Mm-hmm. Of course, now, being that her time is precious and she might as well gather all the rosebuds while she may. Since apparently her retirement funds and bonds had enough in them, she decides to upgrade to first class after that's her only recourse to have a more comfortable flight experience.
Yeah, but first she kind of yells at the airline people. It's like, why are you trying to like rip us off like this or like make us all sit close together? Which yes.
We have one of those interesting kind of contradictions that often comes up as she delivers a little sort of anti-corporatist soliloquy, and then immediately after is enjoying the heavenly realm of first class.
Yeah,
you know, and so but there's no resolution to the societal structural problem, but she gets to have like a giant roasted turkey pushed on a cart next to her, and a whole bottle of champagne or wine for herself.
Like sometimes these movies, like they're kind of like a wish fulfillment of all the things you wish you had, you know, and like kind of being like, oh yeah, this could happen to me. And it's in a way like it almost like suppresses the desire to like overthrow capitalism, I guess you could say. You know, it's weird. It's like these wish fulfillment movies, even when they have anti-capitalist sentiments, sometimes I think they work to uphold capitalism because we all think we could be Georgia someday. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that these movies shouldn't exist, but I'm just saying it's interesting that this is the case.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, upon landing, they tell her how long it's going to take to take a taxi from the airport to the Grand Hotel. Then, you know, in sort of like a panning shot, you see a symbol for a helicopter on the building behind her head, and then she turns her head, and apparently an idea is sparked. So God knows how much that costs to rent for her transport, but she then goes to the Grand Hotel Pupp and lands right in front of the hotel, and somebody's asking one of the butler isn't the correct word.
Valet, maybe?
The concierge.
Valet or concierge, yeah. Somebody asked the valet, like, who is that? He says, I don't know. I can't get his accent right, but the last person who came by helicopter was Elton John. Sir Elton John. And it was kind of a fun scene.
Yeah. And so right away she went from somebody who doesn't have any attention drawn onto herself to being, you know, discussed and being the center of attention.
Arriving in the most ostentatious way possible.
Exactly.
Yes, in front of all the other elites and trumping their...
So you already start to see this shift that's happening for her.
Yeah, and it only costs God knows how much money.
We've been doing some of the calculations on this, and thank you for realizing that she left on Christmas. So Christmas to New Year's is what the span of the film. She's paying $4,000 a night for the presidential suite. So we have like there about $28,000.
Yeah, my God, she must have had quite a fund. Although she does win some money later at a casino. So
she wins money, but I'm trying to calculate. She wins $100,000 or so at the casino. I'm trying to calculate. Wait, did she already have $100,000 which she had to spend, then only to get $100,000 back to use in the proper way? Anyway, that's
we'll leave it for later.
Neither here nor there. Yeah.
Okay, so I was most excited to find out that the Grand Hotel Pupp that she arrives at in Karlovy, or also called Carlsbad, Czechoslovakia, this is a real place. So, and it's a really cool place. And if we could have done this for our travel series, because it's like a super interesting place. And I'm going to give kind of an abbreviated version of what we would have done in the travel series and talk a little bit about the places. So the Grand Hotel Pupp, located in Karlovy, it's like about 2 hours from Prague. It was also used for filming in Casino Royale, and it was apparently the inspiration for the hotel in the Grand Budapest Hotel. And this is like you can see why, because it's like the facade is very grand and ostentatious and beautiful and white and like against the mountains. And it was built originally in 1701, not as a hotel at that time. It was used as a ballroom for nobility. And the original Pupp family bought it in the late 1700s. And the Pupp family were confectioners, actually. And if you go to the hotel today, you can get a cake in the cafe that is made from a Pupp family recipe. So that's one of the recommended travel things you should do. Yeah. It looks like kind of like there's chocolate, but not the whole thing. It looks like, I don't know what all the flavors are per se. And it was also, this hotel site was the site of the first public restaurant in Karlovy in 1801. And then in the 1890s, like much of the site was actually rebuilt and then opened as today's Grand Hotel Pupp. So it's not like all the like timber and everything is from the 1700s, but like the site has been in continuous use as that sort of place with the same basic kind of facades. And then according to the website, now this is according to the hotel's website. I can't verify this.
I think they have a translation error somewhere in there because these names don't work out.
Yeah, like it may be that just some of these people went to the hotel before it was a hotel, and so they're being included anyway. That might be what it is. Like they were just nobility that visited the hall back in the day before it was a hotel. But it says among the people who have stayed there are Napoleon, Chopin, Franz Kafka, Bach, and Beethoven. And there were more. Like, these are the highlights.
You know what? I think that Karlovy Vary has been on the European Grand Tour since its
perhaps.
inception. So, I think it would be a long list. But,
Yeah.
a big part of the Grand Tour was going to a Central European spa town. So it's either like Carlsbad or you go over to Germany, you go to Baden-Baden. And those are, some of the bigger splashier destinations.
So, like, you can look all this information up and more if you go to the hotel's website, which I will include in the show notes. I was not able to find the actual price of the presidential suite because every time I tried to press reservation, it was not available. But I looked at some of the other rooms, and if you wanted a parkside room on Christmas, it would be roughly $208 US. So actually pretty reasonable. Yeah. And maybe it's because of COVID. I don't know. And there is also, in fact, a spa at the hotel and many spa treatments. You can ski nearby, and they have dental care too. You can go there and get dental treatments. And I was thinking, considering how expensive dental care is in the US, maybe. Why not? Why not? Okay.
Worth looking into.
Yeah. And then Karlovy Vary is an interesting city also. Like, it's about, like I said, about 2 hours from Prague. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site listed as one of the great spa towns of Europe. The town was founded in the 1300s. Legend has it that Emperor Charles IV came through and his leg was hurt, but it was healed by the hot springs. So the city was named after him. I guess Karlovy Vary somehow translates to Charles IV. And it became a spa resort in the 19th century. And some other places you might want to visit if you're in Karlovy Vary. There's the Diana Lookout Tower. And you can get to that with a funicular that's like right next door to the Grand Hotel Pupp. In the movie, it looks a little bit more isolated than it is in real life. Like in the real life, it's like right next. Yeah, it's right in the city center, I think, basically. And you should also visit the different colonnades in town that have hot springs. It has many springs. Depending on the source, like some sources says there are 800 springs in the town. Some say there are 300. But all of them agree that there's roughly 13 to 15 open to the public. And you can drink water from the springs. You use a special cup, which I guess cools the water down a little before you drink it.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah. And this is mentioned later in the movie. You can, in fact, visit the Moser Glass Factory, which makes really beautiful glass works. They recommend eating oplatka, these like wafers filled with sugar, nuts, and spices that are supposed to kind of cut the flavor of the mineral water, I guess. And you can also drink something called Bekarovka liqueur.
Ooh, that sounds pretty good.
Yeah, it's the special drink that's made in the area. It's got a secret recipe with over 20 herbs and spices, and apparently has a gingery or cinnamon flavor. And they also recommend that you attend the Karlovy Vary International Film Festival, which has generally been held in July, but I wasn't really able to determine whether it's going on in 2022 due to COVID. So, yeah, but it sounds like a really interesting town. And I've included in the show notes links to a couple videos that show you that are little tours of the town, which were kind of interesting. So, yeah, I want to visit there now.
Yeah, me too.
I want to go to the Grand Hotel Pupp.
Yes, very much so. I don't even mind the Baroque detailing, which isn't my cup of tea. It looks wonderful.
So when, like we've already mentioned, she arrives at the hotel and she's noticed by people. So who is she noticed by? The other guests at the hotel include Matthew Kragen, the owner of her retail store that she was working at. Ms. Burns, who's kind of his employee and also sleeping with him, like in an affair outside of his marriage. Senator Dillings, her senator from Louisiana. And Congressman Stewart and his wife. Congressman Stewart's apparently her congressman. He doesn't really do much, though. He's just kind of there as another politician. Yeah. And both of those politicians are hanging out with Matthew Kragen, who wants a merger to go through of some sort. And so he's trying to kind of bribe these politicians with a ski trip.
Yeah, I think it makes sense.
What? What's that?
Well, you want to, I don't know, if you're going to get politicians into your own plane and bribe them, you should get plural. Two or three, not just one. So, yeah, senator and a congressman. That makes sense.
Nice.
So George's first days at the hotel, right away, you can tell it's a very different setting from what she's used to. And she's noticing things like the beautiful ceiling, the nice sheets, really coming into an appreciation of these small things. And in doing so, also kind of helping other people who are maybe used to it to realize it themselves, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
She gets to go on a shopping spree, which is an interesting scene where she just is trying, like they do a montage where she's trying on different costumes, different outfits, I should say, and different dresses. And, she says, make me international. And so they're going through them. But
Yeah.
ultimately,
I kind of question how international some of the clothes are, but like,
yeah,
like when you said costumes, it does very much feel like costumes.
Yeah.
They're very ostentatious clothes.
I don't know. I was in Europe in 2006, and
Yeah.
I'm thinking, in Switzerland, I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm back there again.
Oh, really? Okay. So
Actually,
people were wearing quite flashy, like all white suits with like a
terrible,
little
terrible
white hat.
outfits. Terrible. Yeah, it was Zurich was enough to give you to kill you, just in the shock of it all.
Yeah.
I'm not joking. I'm only half joking, but actually, yeah, the some of those stylings reminded me of the ostentatious crap running around in the mid 2000s.
Yeah. It just feels very dated to me when she's trying on these different outfits, and I can't help but laugh every time.
I do think though she looks good. Like I think she looks good, but it's just like the clothes, they don't like what connotes richness to me, I guess, is something more understated usually, or more like elegant maybe, and some of them
Which
are
is
so
what she ends up in. Which is what she ends up in.
Yeah, she ends up wearing this beautiful, beautiful red dress. And it's really nice because just seeing her confidence grow in this time is just really, really nice.
Yeah, I agree.
And then,
I want to talk about the spa treatments too.
Oh, go ahead.
So I really like the scene where she's getting different spa treatments. There's a montage of them, and she's getting like kind of stone massages, kind of like normal stuff. But then she the spa lady's like whipping her with some like grasses or something.
Normal. That's birch. It's birch. She's whipping her with birch leaves, which is something you do in sauna culture to stimulate the blood flow to the back.
But I thought it was so funny because she feels like she's being attacked, and so she starts like whipping the spa lady back with the birch leaves. And then the lady's like, "No, I do it with love." That was that's one of the biggest laughs for me in the movie, I feel like. And then there's a gong too. She's like, "What is this gong thing doing here?"
It was like the best hits of the 2000s leisure spa industry. I knew people in that. So giant, they got out the giant hot stone.
Yeah.
Those you use on freaking horses. But they do call them like a quine. There is a quine hot stone massage. That's one of those you use. Otherwise you use it on your butt, typically, that big one, to just throw it on down.
And they even had the singing bowls.
Yeah, the singing bowls, gongs. It was
everything
wonderful.
Is nice.
Yeah, very cool. Okay, so then we get to one of her main goals in life, though, which is to order from a menu by Chef Didier, performed by Gerard Depardieu. And I love, so this is Chef Didier's menu. She finds out what the specials are. Cassoulet, risotto barlow with truffles. I don't know what that is. Do you know what barlow is, Ishtar? I did the spelling.
Did he actually say barlow?
Pretty sure.
Really? Because then I don't know what it is.
Okay.
I don't either.
Yeah. This is the best that I could figure out what he was saying. So cassoulet, I know what that is. It's a stew, like a French stew. Risotto barlow with truffles. I'm just saying what it sounded like. Roger citrus beurre blanc with capers.
Yep.
Roast quail with brioche stuffing. And braised lamb shank with blood orange relish. So that's the menu that is available. And so do you recognize some of those, I think, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah. And let's see. And so instead of choosing just one thing, she finds out that the menu is different every day. So she says that she's going to have all of it. And then the waiter goes, "Tout? All?" And she said, "Toot, baby. Toot sweet."
I love that.
Yes,
yeah. I love that. And that's I don't know how you're going to eat all that food, but
there's pretty small portions. They're small enough portions. if you get
Yeah,
hungry.
you have a better appetite than I do, I think. Or Georgia does. I would be like overwhelmed by that amount of food that actually comes out. But then back in the kitchen we see Chef Didier. So he's just been given like Matthew Kragen's table at the same time has like ordered different menu items, but they've all like substituted this or left out butter or left out this or that. And he's so annoyed with their order. He just like, merde, what am I going to do with these people? But then her order comes in. He finds out that she's ordered everything off the menu, no substitutions. And she's like, I love this woman in French. And I like that, even though I would be the person ordering with substitutions or ordering vegan things. Like
I think he does an improvised line right after that because his character's not supposed to know it's a woman. And then you see him go like, he's a woman, no? I just assumed so. I think that was him on the spot.
Could be.
That's my feeling. I don't know.
Yeah, it's funny though that I like this, like I said, because like I would be substituting things. I would be or I probably wouldn't order at Chef Didier's menu to begin with because it doesn't have.
Be at his restaurant.
Yeah, there's just nothing there for a vegan, really, or even really maybe a vegetarian. Yeah, he does like butter. You could order buttery vegetables, but yeah.
Yeah, but he tends to mix his butter with rendered pork fat anyways. So,
that's a secret.
It's a secret. One of his secrets. Yeah.
So what did you guys think of the food on his menu? And like, would you want to eat Chef Didier's food? Like, what would you order from Chef Didier?
Well, for me, also because I lean more towards plant-based cuisine, it just doesn't seem as appealing to me.
Yeah.
But I feel like if I were eating meat, we'd try it.
I would order the enther menu.
Yeah.
So you do a Georgia.
Yeah, I could see that.
I would do a Georgia at such a place. Yeah.
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 Yeah, that'd be fun.
What if you had to pick one? What do you think you would choose?
Oh, I think I want something simple. I'd want to try his cassoulet.
Yeah.
Or the risotto with truffles, which is hard to turn down ever. Risotto with truffles.
Very good. Yeah. And I'm sad. Like it makes me like I appreciate the artistry of it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like so sometimes when food is so artistically rendered, like I do have a moment where I'm like, oh, I wish I could try that. But then I'm like, but in reality, I wouldn't like it anyway. So like I look at someone cooking a whole fish and I'm just like, nope. Or lamb. And I'm like, nope. Doesn't look like food to me.
I can relate.
Okay. All right, so we get on after this meal. We start having more interactions with the other guests, and they've been watching her from Matthew Kragen's table, the senator, the congressman, etc. They've been watching her. Chef Didier comes over to her table and starts talking with her, and they're like, "Who is this like important person who's like dining so confidently by herself, eating all this food?" And now Chef Didier is paying attention to her, so we start having these interactions.
Yeah, here's where we get kind of into, like being there territory, to reference the, Peter Sellers film, and the film, takes on the same sort of plot device where she's saying nothing about herself and everyone's assuming everything, and the movie proceeds from there. Yes, it's interesting that the thing that the senator mentions, his line is, I wish I could command attention that way. And I'm thinking, well, I'm sure you do. You're a senator already, for God's sakes. But they make a lot of attention of, taking up space and as kind of the metaphor for somebody who's, has healthy self-worth. I find that interesting that's sort of a theme that runs through the film. It's like they say other things like, "Look, they're eating that. She's got them eaten out of her hands."
Yeah,
and that sort of thing. Like somehow that's what you're going for in life, is to have a bunch of people around your table interacting with you instead of enjoying your quail quietly in the corner. While reading a nice book in between bites.
And I think Georgia would be happy to enjoy her quail quietly in the corner too. I don't think like she's like searching the attention out so much as like she's getting the attention by being genuine.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. By being herself. Yeah. So yeah, and another reason they've started to assume that she's important is that she made an offhanded comment to like the valet or whatever that like Senator Dillings missed their meeting. And she's referring to that he was supposed to show up at her church and like speak to the church. And yeah, but they assume that she's had some private meeting with Senator Dillings. And then Matthew Kragen becomes obsessed with finding out who she is because, like, what if she gets in the way of, like, his dealings with the senator or something? I don't know. He's very paranoid. Like, he's this rich, successful guy, but he's, like, super paranoid for the whole movie.
Yeah, he's always on the edge.
I like Timothy Hutton's performance.
What about it?
That he's on the edge, that he's tight. The paranoia.
Yeah. And he also gets quite competitive with Georgia. So,
yes.
Like, she's learning to snowboard in one of the following scenes. And Queen Latifah actually had to also learn to snowboard for the movie. So, like, I'm sure she didn't do some of the more intense shots that are in the scene. So she's learning to snowboard, and then she kind of accidentally takes off. Like, why? Okay, this is a quibble. But why would the bunny hill where you're learning to snowboard be so close to a black diamond hill? Because, like, you shouldn't be able to accidentally start snowboarding onto the black diamond hill. It just should not be a thing that happens.
Yeah.
So she kind of takes off and is unable to stop. And then she appears to be snowboarding so successfully. And then Matthew Kragen's like, nobody skis faster than me. And so.
Yeah, that's right. And then they get entangled with each other. He's like, get off of my skis. I'm going to press charges.
Yeah. And we have one of those madcap, like, skiing chase scenes that, like, seems a little silly, but I don't know. I think it somehow works. Like, when I first saw it, I was like, this is kind of, like, silly and I don't need this in the movie. But now when I look back on it, it's kind of memorable.
Yeah, I mean, I'm it's pretty normal. I read about it in a Rick Steves guide. He's saying, be careful when you go from the bunny hill to the black diamond that you don't end up on the retail mogul skis, because it happens weekly.
Yes, and then
Rick Steves.
And then be sure that you don't, like, accidentally ski over the roof of some restaurant and then break the table that people are having a meal at, but then they all cheer for you, even though you just broke all their food.
When I was in Switzerland, even when it wasn't like the ski season, I once had my whole meal of charcuterie thrown into disarray by a errant snowboarder landing on it. So completely. It happens. Imagine if it were actually snow out there, probably 3 times people would have landed on our table. That sausage isn't cheap up there in the mountains. It's like Swiss prices too.
Yep. Anyway, that was our skiing and snowboarding scene, and, like, it's one of those situations where somebody's, like, doing something for the, like, so poorly that it ends up looking good, I guess.
Yes.
And like later you see her picture on a skiing magazine. They really put that issue together fast, you know?
They print them out in 2 days there. They pump them out. If somebody does that, they bend the rules and they make sure that you're on.
Yep. And this kind of infuriates Matthew Kragen because now she's, like, beat him at skiing. She beats him at skiing and she beats him at getting Chef Didier's attention. And so much so that the next night they're at dinner, Chef Didier has given Georgia a special table all to herself. And, like, whereas Senator Dillings had invited her to join them, now she invites them to join her. Like, the tables have turned.
Yes, literally.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Kragen, at first, he's very stubborn and he's still pretty sore at his, I don't know, I guess losing in competition. But at first he decides to not join them and he's sitting all alone at this big table. And then finally he decides to move over to the other table and
they don't give him enough arm room and he has to beg his way into the seating
Well, he tries to sit also between the congressman and his wife, which is pretty rude.
It's terrible. Why'd you do that?
Yeah.
Why'd you do that? Yeah. I think someone studying, the psychoanalytic tradition would have a field day with this movie. Use some of these characters as examples in their lectures. Matthew Kragen isn't just a sore open wound. Imagine his childhood. He has to have his face on his in-house magazine every time, which is, they got the magazine cover theme going here too. So he has them all and she gets one.
So while they're at dinner, another thing Georgia ends up doing inadvertently is like they're talking about their plans for the next day. And Kragen's got their tour of the Moser Glass Factory, which I would be about that tour. I would like to go to the Moser Glass Factory.
Yeah, let's go there.
Yeah, me too.
He's arranged a special tour for them. But then when Georgia says she's going to go base jumping, they all jump ship and they don't want to go to the glass factory. They want to go base jumping. And I'm like, I felt sorry for him there. Even though he's kind of a jerk, you know, like I still felt sorry for him for a moment. I'm like, oh, he planned a plan. And now nobody likes his plan anymore. And they all want to go base jumping.
Yeah.
But they don't go base jumping. They're going to watch Georgia. But then Matthew's like, well, I've got to get the attention back on me. So I'm going to base jump too.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes about as well as you would expect for him.
Yeah. It doesn't go well at all, does it? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. They go to this dam and like Georgia's, I would never do this in a million years. You're like just jumping off the edge of a dam with like some, I don't know, like these wing things or a parachute that goes up. Lee said he would do it. Lee said he like if he wasn't married to me, he said, because he knows I would worry too much, he would do it.
Lee's a good Scorpio. That's what it's all about.
What's that?
That's what it's just tests of courage,
That's impressive.
Getting on the edge.
Yeah. Me
walking the line with death.
I would not even go near that thing. I'd be like, nope. I'm good. I'm going to the glass factory. You guys have fun. Would you guys?
I love that the instructor seems like a really young guy with braces who's probably not getting paid all that well to be out there, making sure that you don't die. I don't know. I love that detail.
Oh, and he also says he's lost a few people.
We've lost a few people. It's very important. We have lost a few people. It's
yeah.
Would you guys do this base jumping?
Nah, it's not for me.
It's a little bit too GoldenEye for me. Yeah.
GoldenEye? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
Though he doesn't base jump, he puts himself on a slack line, doesn't he, in the beginning of GoldenEye?
I don't know, man.
So I can't
Pierce
remember.
Brosnan,
Yeah, it's been a while.
It's the beginning. It's a great beginning.
All right.
Yeah.
I like the references you're bringing in, Ishtar. You're really you're expanding our reference range. And
only the finest films.
Yeah.
Yeah, really. Yeah.
So yeah, Matthew Kragen, in my opinion, wisely decides not to base jump because they've lost a few people. But for this, he feels humiliated, and all his friends are disappointed in him, which they wouldn't have been if he hadn't tried to go base jumping in the first place and had just cheered from the sidelines like they were. But yeah.
Yeah, and the thing too is that he claims that it's due to a mechanical failure when I don't think that was the case.
No,
so everybody could kind of see right through him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And so Georgia also has like some talks with different people. So she talks to Ms. Burns, like the assistant who's sleeping with Matthew Kragen at the spa. Like, so Ms. Burns is being kind of like bitchy to the spa employees, which is what draws her attention. And she says, you don't talk to working people that way. And that part I'm behind. Like, I'm totally with that. But then she says something like, you have a bad neck because you've been like, does she explicitly say that she's been giving blowjobs to Matthew Kragen? Or is
basically she said you've been going down on Kragen.
Yeah.
Is what she says. Yes.
Yeah.
So it's pretty explicit.
Yeah. That part I wasn't cool with. I was like, that's kind of slut shaming and a little gross to say that.
Yeah, I didn't like that.
That didn't sit well with me as well.
But then she is nice to her later. Like, when this character improbably comes up and talks to her about her life. Like, I don't know if I were Ms. Burns, I probably wouldn't be so endeared to this lady. But Ms. Burns goes and talks to her and she's like, like no one takes me seriously at work. Like they all look at me a certain way. Like, does everyone know I'm sleeping with him? And she's like, yeah. And so then George is really nice to her though and encourages her, like, go back to school. Like, you don't need him. Like, he's not going to leave his wife.
I think it works because they make it apparent that Mrs. Burns actually really isn't into Matthew Kragen, and she kind of knows it. And so I think we kind of get the sense that she is compromised in what she's doing, and she's looking for someone to actually see it because she has nobody to talk to about it. She's kind of trapped. It's just her and Kragen. She's not going to talk to Kragen about her problems with Kragen.
Yeah, because she could lose her job if she breaks up.
She could lose her
with
job.
him.
So she's kind of she's got no leverage and doesn't, so I think that, it's not that improbable that somebody who's actually speaking straight to her in a sense would be somebody she could talk to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody who's not beholden to her boss like everybody else seems to be.
Yeah, I just didn't like the way she called her out in front of all the spa employees about the sexual relationship. Like,
that wasn't good.
And I think that also is one of the parts of the film that is a bit more like moralistic, perhaps you could say, where like even relating all the way back to the church scene, you know, she's like, God, why? Like, I never slept around like my sister, something like that.
She said, like my sister.
And so it's like, I don't know, there's just sometimes these tacit little messages, you know, where it can get a bit moralistic that, you know, I don't like as much.
Yeah.
But, you know, I kind of let it go.
Yeah, there's good in the movie. There's also things that are a little bit like, maybe not to my taste.
Yeah.
But yeah. So then she also talks to Senator Dillings. And Senator Dillings is kind of hitting on her, Giancarlo Esposito's character.
She is.
Like the first time he sees her in the red dress, he says across the room, "Hello, sister."
Hello, sister.
To himself.
Yeah.
And then he comes up to her and talks to her a few times, and she talks to her in the spa and kind of talking to her a little bit, hitting on her there. Where do I know you from? And then later he tells her that she should visit DC. She'd really like it. When she says you weren't at the church meeting. And that she then says, like, I can't ignore like the for sale sign on your head. And like, she's like really angry at him for not supporting the community. And this which gets into money and politics, which is like a little ahead of its time in terms of what America was talking about in 2006, which is cool. Like we're talking about healthcare in this movie. We're talking about low wages. We're talking about politicians for sale. And but he defends it by saying like he needs these donors, you know, in order to be elected, which and sadly is somewhat true in our society, but which we should make not true. But I like how they don't make Senator Dillings like an enemy, an evil guy. They make him like a guy who knows that he's morally compromised, knows that he should be doing better, but doesn't see a way out.
Yeah, he's not a bad guy. The system's bad, sort of deal. Yeah, that's great. I have to mention, though, one more thing, though, what you're saying, that this was kind of a little bit ahead of its time in some ways. Much of what I remember from this period, see, I wasn't really consuming much media, but the media I would consume was a bad representation. I'd like be on an airplane and I'd watch some of the TV shows on the little TVs on the back of the seats. And I became kind of shocked when I saw that there were like 3 house flipping shows that were on major networks at the same time. Do you remember those? Flip That House? Those other things? There were Flip That House, and then the other things there were all these celebrity chefs. So I started, I think it's a quote from Tacitus, who said, like, when the chefs become celebrities, you know, look out, you know, watch out, your society's kind of going in a bad path. I don't necessarily agree with that, but, you know, it just always stuck in my mind as the mid-2000s seemed like this is not going anywhere good. And at the time, I did not know any of the details of the
mortgage crisis
and everything that led up to that, until it was a little bit later when I started seeing people getting loans, you know, without any income
this is right before all that. 2006, and then 2008 things crashed.
Right in that hopper. But yes, I remember on some of those house flipping shows, people were talking about like, I own about 15 houses right now, you know, with mortgages. And
I like that was like Bill Clinton's cousin that you just like sort of impersonated.
Yeah, I don't know. Bill Clinton's. I'm sorry to all the Southerners who are listening. I don't mean it. I'm from the North. It happens. It comes out of relation to Bill Clinton. I'm sorry, Bill Clinton, if you're listening. You know.
Okay.
I got 20 condos down in Florida, and I've got no income for them, but you know things are going great. And I was on Flip That House yesterday.
Okay. So then finally, there's a scene where George is invited to go to the casino, and this scene, she hits the same number like 3 times in a row at this casino, and everyone's like sort of cheering her on, and like it's in roulette. Like she's playing roulette. She's playing roulette, and she hits the same number 3 times in a row. Everyone's cheering her on. I'm like, I didn't look up what the odds of that are, but I'm sure they're astronomical.
Yeah. They're astronomical.
And that's another place where like I feel like it's sort of almost explicitly being religious, because she kind of talks to God and like, why are you changing my look now? Because like you'd almost need a divine intervention, or the casino would have to be fixed for this to actually happen. I feel like.
Yeah.
And she wins like something equivalent of about $100,000 according to the movie. So, which can partially explain how she's managing to stay in the presidential suite off of working person's IRA.
Yeah,
And
well, she got bonds from her mother too, so maybe they were considerable, or they appreciated quite a bit. But yeah, there's no way her IRA is that big. Her IRA should be at least 40, 50, 60,000. We're guessing, from $28,000 in hotel expenses and the food from Chef Didier and helicopters and everything else. Yeah.
So she has a considerable amount of money to work with on this last holiday. Yeah.
Yes.
And I feel like a lot of people might not even have that.
Yeah.
No.
So
some people would have to keep working at their job just to not end up homeless for the last 3 weeks of their life. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes,
so
exactly.
That's just one thing to consider as well.
Yeah, Saint No Last Holiday in Dickens, England, this film, or Modern America.
Yeah. So like, Ishtar, you were saying something, we had to break for a second. You were saying something about the casino, like in the hotel?
Yeah, I just was watching an interview with Queen Latifah on YouTube that was filmed around the time of the movie, I think. And she was talking about how they all were all staying at the hotel, all the actors and the staff. I thought, oh, that sounds pretty good. Like, and her dad was there apparently, and her dad was like the casino. And she said I think it was both she and her dad, I'd have to go back to the interview, got a little, maybe did a little bit too much gambling, and maybe life imitating art. Sounds like fun to me. And I think that trying to do the times, I don't know when Casino Royale filmed there, but Casino Royale would have probably been filming there around the time that Last Holiday was released, or even before, which is that 2006 James Bond film where they go back to the beginning, to the origin story of Bond with Daniel Craig. So
Grand Hotel Pupp was a hot spot.
It's a hot spot. Yeah, it's a real hot spot.
Yeah. I was just going to say, based on that interview that Ish was just mentioning, it was nice because you really got the sense that the different actors really enjoyed being there and working together, and they had a good time just making this movie. So
nice.
It's always nice when you can get that too. Right?
I wouldn't complain. My God, I'd be on set and they're paying for my room at the Hotel Pupp. How wonderful.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so now we've reached the section where spoilers are okay, which is funny with this movie because I feel like I knew what was going to happen in the end at the beginning of the movie. But however, now, if you have no idea what's going to happen at the end and you don't want spoilers, stop listening and go watch the movie. Okay.
Turns out what happens at the end is LL Cool J, turns out, has an undiagnosed fatal disease. And she doesn't. But it goes very badly, and she jumps off the roof with her boss. Sorry, folks, that's how it ends. It's a real downer. That's why I didn't make the money back.
I'm really surprised nobody else has tried this before on the show.
Fake movie endings.
Yeah.
It's a real downer. It's worse than Somewhere in Time.
Oh.
And that's a beautiful downer, if it could be one.
Okay, that is no way the end of the movie, just so you know.
No.
But yes, but thank you, Ishtar.
Yeah.
Alternative
ending, yeah.
After Matthew Kragen has been shown up numerous times by Georgia, he decides to investigate her, and he sets the hotel valet Gunther, who's a very kind of uptight German woman, onto George's trail. And Gunther goes and investigates her hotel room, finds out her employee ID card from Kragen's, and then after that, though, finds a letter that George has written, kind of her last will and testament kind of a thing, and finds out she's dying and just changes her attitude completely. So, yeah, that's a little scene of important information.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's that whole, speaking of Dodgeball again, it's not the same actress, but it's the same kind of German woman stereotype character that you have in Dodgeball.
Yes.
I immediately thought of that.
With a resting frown.
Yeah.
Resting bitch face.
Yeah.
Yes.
Rest in German bitch face, though. It's a very
German bitch face, yeah.
So, Ish, I want you to talk about Georgia and Chef Didier now, because you seem to have a particular idea about Chef Didier's role in the movie. So, yeah, if you want to tell about their interactions in the movie.
Yeah, I'm probably getting a little bit too deep into monomyth and Joseph Campbell waters here, but just looking at the structure of this, I mean, she's going through a death experience, and kind of the external sort of Georgia is a person who's meant to be vivacious and really alive, and the person who's in the movie I think is the most alive of anyone is probably Depardieu's character. Didier, he's passionate. He doesn't seem to hold back. He's fairly unrepressed. He's a man of the world, and he's enjoying the senses. The walk through the market, where at the outdoor market where she and Depardieu go through, it's so relaxed. You get the sense that this man is one with this world of turnips and potatoes and salmons and lemons, and it's beautiful. So I find him to be kind of her wizard, the wizened old man character who's there to sort of initiate her into being herself. And the fact that she actually cooks a meal with him as an equal.
Yeah.
At the end of the film is her graduation ceremony. The Wizard of Oz has given her the certificate. Only he's not a faker.
Yeah, and she actually sought him out. She went to the Grand Hotel Pupp because of Chef Didier. So she sought out his teaching, essentially.
Yes.
Even if she didn't know it.
Teaching. She didn't know it. Yeah, she didn't know why, but that was, he's teaching through food. She finally lets herself have the thing that she's not let with. In this case, food is a stand-in for joy. And food is a stand-in for love here, metaphorically. And she goes to the place that is the source of her love, which is this restaurant and this spa. And that's her meditation. That's her initiation.
And like in that market scene, Chef Didier tells her the secret of life, and he says, the secret of life is butter.
Yes.
And I think that goes to what you're saying about like it's a metaphor for like, well, maybe it's not a metaphor for him. Maybe he just thinks actual butter is the secret of life. But like it could be a metaphor for like enjoying things. And
yes,
yeah,
yes,
I like that.
Yeah. There are certain things which you can't substitute. In a metaphysical sense, you can't. A facsimile of love is not going to have the same effect.
So, like a lot of this stuff, the next stuff has been happening throughout the story, but I'm just telling about it right here. Like it's kind of like here and there we see what's happening back in New Orleans, and that is kind of Sean trying to figure out what happened with Georgia. Like, why is she gone? Why did she quit? And so first he's harassing, I think it's Dr. Gupta, I think is his name.
Yeah, that's right.
And like, I was kind of bothered by the portrayal of Dr. Gupta. Like he's this Indian doctor and he's portrayed as like meditating on his break. And then Sean like kind of like, which is fine to be meditating on your break, but it's like kind of done in a way like, yes, this is what all Indian people do, is what I felt like. You know what I mean? And then like Sean like is trying to harass him for private medical information about Georgia, which a good doctor would never give out, and which he's trying not to give out. And then Sean like lifts him up to kind of like harass him for the information, which is kind of like playing on his like kind of stature, being small stature. And I wasn't in love with it, like I'll forgive the movie that, but I'm just like, okay. But it's a plot device, I guess. And so Dr. Gupta reveals that she's been diagnosed with this Lampington's disease. And that leads Sean to go over to her house, which like you could have just gone to the house in the first place, really, don't you think?
I knew where it was.
Yeah. It's like, unless he harassed that out of Dr. Gupta too, I don't know. But he goes over, he goes over to the house and he sees her neighbor Darius, the neighbor kid. And Darius sees him and he's like, "You're that guy. The possibilities man." and he goes and he gets the possibilities book and he shows Sean like all these pictures that she put of like his face and like her in the wedding thing. And I'm like, this guy must really be into her if she sees that and he's like, yes, this is what I want. Don't you think?
No. even that weirded out.
Yeah.
He's just like,
No, even a good-looking guy like LL Cool J's character, they might not think that women like them so much. So, this is doing, it's taking the uncertainty out of the equation for him.
But
Yeah.
a lot of guys are like super weirded out by women who are like really into them. I've noticed.
Really?
Unfortunately, there's a lot of guys like that in the world.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It is crazy, but yes, I'm glad that I've never suspected you of operating like this, Ishtar, and I'm glad that you have confirmed that you do not operate like that.
No, I operate like a Scorpio. It's quite the opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, this is good. This is good.
Yeah, it's good. That's one thing I don't have to worry about so much.
Yeah.
So then Sean, like, because he finds out that George is like really into him, like for sure, he decides to travel to the hotel, which he also sees in the possibilities book, which Darius kind of confirms for him. And he's afraid of flying, which I found adorable because I'm kind of like these days, I don't like flying so much either.
Yeah.
Then, so he gets to the hotel, or he gets to the airport, and just as he gets to the airport, George is planning on going back home, probably to see him. And I really thought the movie was going to play that up more, have them like just miss each other and she'd end up back home or something. But they didn't go there, and I was glad they didn't go there because I hate that kind of shit in movies. It just wastes time.
Yeah, that is shit. That is good.
Yeah. Instead, like an avalanche like falls on the road between the airport and the hotel. And so Georgia goes back to the hotel, and Sean, like a crazy person, decides he's going to walk over a strange mountain to a hotel where there's just been an avalanche.
Oh my God. Yeah.
It's amazing.
I swear these writers took bits and pieces from like a hero's journey screenwriting booklet, because this is exactly what you have one of your heroes do.
Yeah. I mean, it really proves his love, the depth of his love, because first he's flying when he's afraid of flying to go see her. And then he's doing this crazy thing, walking up this mountain in the dark.
Yeah. And he doesn't have snowshoes or anything.
Yeah.
He has no equipment for this.
It's pretty wild.
Well, he has to pay something too, because Georgia's going to put herself into a different place as a person. He'll have to do something just to make sure that he's, in the worthy of it, in a sense, in the same level. I think that's what it feels like to me. I don't know if that's intended or not, but that's just the feel of it.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me.
Okay, so let's see. We now come to New Year's Eve, and this is all like his walk up to the hotel is occurring on New Year's Eve also. And we'd already talked about how Georgia is going to help Chef Didier out with dinner. And the reason she's helping is because there's like no staff, like they're short staffed. And also I think Chef Didier like both respects her, and he's found out that she's going to be, that she's got this disease. So, and I just wanted to include a little clip. It was hard to get clips for this movie, but I have a little clip of something that Chef Didier tells her while they're cooking. So I'm going to play that really quick, and we can comment upon it.
It's a very good clip.
What is this?
It's a turnip.
No, it's not. That can't be no turnip.
The poor baby turnips. Nobody likes them, Of course. Life is easy if you are a truffle or shiitake mushroom. But the turnip is to be loved because she's a self-made woman of vegetables. All the others, you can only destroy with cooking. But the turnip, she gets better. So, you see, it's not how you start, but how you finish.
Yeah.
Any comments on that segment? Like, what do you think about that analogy? And what do you think about turnips?
I think he's right. Butter and garlic, but I think that speech is actually, it could have gone into corny, but it doesn't. And whether it's the writing or the delivery, I think they hit it just perfectly. If I wrote that, I'd be really proud of it. And I don't think I'd get any notes back from the producer. And I think it is a good summation. It's a wonderful summation of the themes of the film. So it's...
Yeah.
Do you like eating turnips? I'm curious.
I like turnips. Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever eaten a turnip. I feel like I want to eat a turnip now.
You got to. They're great. I mean, yeah, those root vegetables, they get ignored.
Yeah.
People pass them by, and there are heaps of them still in North American grocery stores.
Yeah, but in Japan, they're pretty popular, like as a side dish too. So
that's right. They love the turnip in Japan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. What is the name for them in Portuguese? Nabu?
Nabu.
Yeah. They love them here too.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a peasant food.
It's a peasant. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
here in Portugal.
Yeah, and she's a working class girl, so it's like that analogy. Yeah.
It's perfect. I mean, it's easy to grow, but nobody wants it, and they can be everywhere, and they don't take a lot of work to grow. You know, because they're pretty resilient against pests and all sorts of things. That's why it's a peasant food. Over here. It's pretty reliable, the harvest.
Yeah, so it really comments directly even on her situation in life, her background, and the fact that it doesn't matter because it's about how you choose to live your life and what kind of person you decide to be. And, you know, throughout the movie, you know, she's showing, you know, she's changing people's lives. She's showing people a lot of compassion, even, I'd say.
Yeah.
So, it's pretty beautiful scene.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's followed by like a little cooking montage where they're just enjoying their cooking time and dancing together and cooking together. I think that's probably not a terribly realistic version of what that kitchen would be like when it's short-staffed on New Year's Eve.
God, no.
I agree.
Yeah.
But it's nice to think that it could be so happy.
The magnitude of the feast that they show in a subsequent scene versus what's going on in the kitchen.
Yes.
They are not.
They're not in
realistic.
alignment.
A dinner party for 7 outside, yes, or like 12.
Yeah, but even for us, like Ish and I, we were doing this 1 month retreat just recently, and one of the things we did was cook in the kitchen just about every day, and it does feel really nice to be able to do that, like Georgia and Chef Didier are doing it. There's, I don't know, some sort of bonding that happens that I really enjoy.
Nice.
A certain
kitchens are pirate ships.
Yeah.
They're tight.
Yeah, it's nice that way.
But Babette's Feast, Eat Your Heart Out. It was a really nice cooking food montage, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Chef Didier then introduces Georgia to the crowd at the restaurant as another chef, although he does it in French, and I don't know what percentage of that audience speaks French, but that's okay. We understand it. It has subtitles.
Yeah.
And then I love the scene. There's a scene where she's preparing to eat the dinner. She goes to her hotel room and she's talking to herself in the mirror. And she's wearing this beautiful kind of black sparkly suit dress with a bow in her hair. And she's telling herself like just nice positive things in the mirror. And she says, next time we'll do things different. We will laugh more. We'll love more. We'll see the world. We just won't be so afraid. And she's looking at herself with love. And I thought that was a really beautiful scene. It's actually probably the best love scene in the movie, in my opinion.
Yes.
I love that.
Yes.
Yeah. I also thought it was interesting, though, that she said next time. Like, I know there are certain Christian denominations that believe in reincarnation, but I don't know how prevalent they are in the U.S., but
I'm not even sure how extant those are. I think most of them were wiped out, or around 100 AD or 300 AD or something like that.
Yeah,
but,
so it seems interesting to me that she said next time. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like she's talking about her future life. Reincarnation.
We're gonna call that a Jungian slip. Some part knows for the next time.
Yeah.
Nice. And so then back at home, Dr. Gupta has realized that the CT machine, which was told to us early in the movie, so it made it pretty obvious, is faulty and not working. Because he apparently, according to the CT machine, also has Lampington's disease, and that
Yeah.
So we see him getting contact information for Georgia and starting the whole process of telling her what's going on. But while this is going on back home, Kragen is all excited because he's found out that like Georgia works for him, And he does the big confrontation of Georgia in front of the whole table of senators and Congress people. And he says, "Attention, Kragen shoppers, imposter aisle 3." And it doesn't go like he planned, though, because George is both like really gracious to everybody and also like tells them that she's dying. And you never want to like call out a dying person on there, not even really a ruse on there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that was just one of the best asshole lines of that type that I've seen in a while. Timothy Hutton does it really well.
Yeah.
He's a really great asshole.
Yeah. She just she tells them what's going on, though, and she's really dignified. Mm-hmm. And she says, "I wasted too much of my life being quiet." And she's talking to them. "You keep your head down and you hustle and hustle. Then you look up one day and you wonder, how did I even get here? And see, some of the things we care about a lot are pretty worthless." And that's kind of excerpts from her speech to them. And they're all kind of nodding their heads in agreement. And she wishes them a happy new year. And then they all abandon Kragen, call him an asshole. Even the girlfriend leaves, says she's getting her business degree. And New Year's Eve, the Auld Lang Syne comes on and Kragen's all alone drinking from a bottle.
Yeah.
And like, even though he's a jerk, I kind of feel sorry for him in that moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah,
I do too.
Yeah, I think it's maybe a tribute to his acting skills that he's able to, I think his insecurities or the writers, his insecurities are obvious enough throughout the film that you know that there's some real trouble in his psyche. And it's all revealed.
Yeah, and I think it's also interesting. It's nice that Chef Didier, after the confrontation with Kragen, Chef Didier comes up to Georgia and he tells her, you know, you owe these people no explanation. You don't even have to like waste your time. But she's like, no, you know, I've got this covered. And she gives her own, you know, feelings straight from her heart. And as you've said, like she does it so gracefully. And I think it was nice because she's like also really standing up for herself.
Yeah.
And, you know, even though she has the support of a friend, she's, you know, using her own voice, which again is one of those themes in the movie.
And then we join Timothy Hutton, Matthew Kragen. Matthew Kragen is on the ledge of the hotel, which, like, even though it came out 2 years later in 2008, this reminded me of like the ledge scene in Yes Man. Like maybe ledges were just in the zeitgeist.
There's something in the water. There's something in the water. There's people out on the ledge. You know? I think so.
So he's like drinking and like kind of like threatening suicide without actually threatening suicide because like it's sort of just implied.
Yes.
And Georgia decides, well, she's dying anyway, so she thinks. So she goes up on the ledge and she's trying to kind of talk him down and being like, you have all this money, you can change your life right now, you have so much to live for. Good point, Georgia.
Yeah.
While this is also happening, though, Sean shows up finally from his mountain trek. He hasn't died in another avalanche or anything. And he comes up on the ledge and he's like, I have feelings for you, Georgia Bird. I want to be with you, whether it's for 5 minutes here on this ledge or 50 years. And he doesn't know she's going to live yet at this point.
Yeah.
Because then the staff finds out like, through a fax that she was misdiagnosed. And Gunther comes up to the ledge to tell her the good news. And so now like they're all up on the ledge. And and George is like, oh, do you still feel the same way about me, Sean, now that you know that I'm gonna be alive? And he's like, yes, he does. And they kiss and everyone cheers and it's like the whole happy ending package. And I really thought at this point someone was gonna almost fall off the ledge.
Yeah, me too. Getting so nervous for it. Like here's the alternate ending, you know, the unsatisfactory ending. Chinese House of the Flying Daggers ending.
No.
You know? Crouching Tiger.
I didn't think it was going to end that way, but I just thought they were going to put us through that. You know what I mean? Where somebody almost falls off the ledge and then you have to watch them get rescued off the ledge. Like in Yes Man, too. Like he whips him out through the window or something. Well, actually, he doesn't almost fall off, does he? He just whips him through.
Yeah, but
I thought I thought you put a ledge in the movie. Somebody's almost going to fall off it. Thank God they didn't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Instead, Georgia just talks to God like she's been doing throughout the movie. And she said, you so wrong. How are you going to do me like that? Which because like she's like telling, like she says that because like God put her through all this, rigmarole, like almost dying just to like make her life right again. And it's kind of her jocular, casual tone with God. I think that's charming there.
Mm.
Yeah.
And then we're fast forwarding and we see like maybe a few months later, a year later, I don't know. Sean and George are together. George is opening a restaurant called George's Joint. Chef Didier is there helping. And then we see Emerald show up and he attends her opening. Emerald, who she was watching on TV. And Ish, did you have something to say about Emerald in that period? Like, I don't really know much about him.
Yeah, 2006 to the mid 2000s were roughly the height of his fame. And, he had like 2 TV shows going at one time. And then his restaurants and then all of his products, which also included cookware. Subsequently, I think several years later, Martha Stewart, after getting out of prison, bought up Emerald's empire and folded into hers.
Oh.
But, it's just very of the times to have Emerald in a film.
Yeah.
In 2006. So it's just like, that's the zenith. That's the high water mark for his. But actually, I have to say, I've done some of his recipes. They're good. They're solid. I used to make his gumbo recipe for the cafe that I helped run, and it always sold out with rave reviews.
Oh, nice.
So I got to give him some props because he knows what he's doing.
Nice. And then at the very end, after we've seen this restaurant opening, I would have been happy if they'd ended the movie right here with the restaurant opening.
Yeah.
Because then they do
organic.
Then they do one of those things that they did in a lot of 80s movies where they're like they call it the Book of Realities, and they make up these weird endings for all the side characters. Like Gunta becomes a detective because she's good at investigating shit. And and then Dr. Gupta quits his job as a doctor at Kragen's to go to an ashram because he's Indian.
He founds the ashram.
He founds an ashram because Indian doctor. That's the only other thing we could anyway.
He's been secretly enlightened the whole time, and playing an elaborate ruse of insecurities, and he's ready right on the spot to make an ashram happen. Yes. Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know. It was a little silly. And then Matthew Kragen's business goes out of business or whatever. And so he joins the ashram as an initiate. And they have all these ridiculous graphics that look just about as good as the graphics in the Book of Possibilities.
I think the tension is so, yes. Yeah.
And then they make Georgia and Sean's wedding a base jumping wedding. And then that was the part that bothered me the most because I'm like, why would she want a base jumping wedding? It would be perfectly fine to have a regular wedding. You don't have to base jump all the time.
I think someone was reading a magazine and it featured base jumping in it. Who was writing it. And they're like, why don't we put this in there? And there was 3 a.m. and they were short on ideas and sick of having back and forths and said, fine, just do base jumping.
Anyway, yeah, I think I would have liked the movie more. It would have felt more wholesome and complete and earnest if it had just ended with her opening the restaurant instead of having all these weird futures in it. But
yeah,
I don't know.
And the one with Alicia Witt's character,
Miss Burns,
yeah. She goes back to school, but then
it's for spa management.
Yeah, for spa management, and she's shown with the leaves,
Yeah.
And it's a bit strange,
Yeah, no, she should have just gone to regular business school because that spa management school is a bit niche-y.
Yeah.
And she's not going to have as much leverage in the capitalist world. So it's a bad move.
And that's the weakness of this kind of montage in these movies because they'll take one thing that the character did once and they'll pretend that would affect the rest of their entire life.
Exactly.
It's so silly. Anyway. Yeah, so that's the end of the movie. Anybody want to talk anything more about the plot before we get to a few discussion questions? And
let's see.
Man,
don't pressure yourself. All right, well we'll do some discussion questions then. So my first discussion question is, what would you do on your last holiday? If you had 3 weeks to live, where would you want to go? What would you want to experience? It's a big question.
You want me to go first?
I don't care who goes first. I'll go first if you guys are still thinking.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, go for it.
I'd love to hear it.
So
Okay.
for me, it would very much depend what time of the year it was. If it was summer, I would definitely go back to Munich and Lake Starnberg. And I think I could just chill there pretty much the whole time. And I'd just invite people to come by, basically. I'd be like, hey guys, I'm dying. So can you travel here I'll pay your ticket or whatever,
Nice.
I think that, and I would definitely hope to include you and you, both of you, in that trip. So Yeah, and if it was a different season, like not summer, I think if it was like winter or fall, or like you couldn't swim, then I think I'd go to Japan, because I didn't really get to see enough of Japan, and maybe I'd go to visit the hot spring monkeys up in Hokkaido,
Yeah.
and go to Kyoto one more time, and like I really enjoyed my time there. So maybe Paris. Yeah. If it's summer, I'm swimming. If it's other times of the year, it's probably Japan or Paris, and maybe see my friends back in Korea too. Yeah. And eat one more time at Baru in Gyeongju, because that is the meal of the gods.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Baru in Gyeongju. If you happen to be near Gyeongju, South Korea, you got to go to Baru.
Okay. Noted.
It sounds like you'd be potentially geographically close to some of our last holidays.
Yes.
Over here. For me, it does also depend on the season. And there's some seasons where I think I'd get myself into a chalet house somewhere close to Lucerne, and just that's a little bit down the road from you. There's other times where I think, no, I'm just going to go stay at that hotel, the Mina House Hotel, close to the Great Pyramids, and spend some quality time meditating in Egypt, and also inviting all my loved ones to come and visit me if money were no option, and we'd meditate in some pyramid chambers together and do stuff like that. But Japan would also be on the list, because I know Luna'd be there, and if she bought me enough curry, that would I could abandon my Egyptian expedition.
Well, Egypt sounds pretty tempting. So this Switzerland. But I think for me, yeah, definitely Japan, just because it feels like a soul home to me. So I just knew I'd want to be back there, and also with loved ones. So both of you would be coming there, and we'd spend some time together, and yeah, maybe meditate in some mountains. That would be nice as well.
Yeah.
Or like some forests, mountain forests.
Yes,
there you
mountain
go.
Forests.
Maybe even spend some time at some Zen temples, pretty quiet and peaceful. And yeah, I agree with George's approach too, where, eating a lot of good food,
Yeah.
That sounds, comforting and pleasant. So
yeah. And I might fly first class just because of the comfort factor. I would not need the presidential suite though, or the helicopter. I could pass on those.
Yes, I think so. Absolument.
All right. So
if I were in her condition, I would try to weasel my way into Depardieu's kitchen. And do some sous chefing. Earn myself a white coat.
Yeah.
That seems like a lot of fun.
Yeah, and so that brings us to are there parts of George's trip you would want to experience? So you'd like to do the sous chef? Are there other things she does that you would want to do, or things that you absolutely wouldn't do? I think we all said pretty much no to base jumping.
Yeah.
I think I should go into a clothing store and tell people, make me international, and I'd just be curious as to what would come out of that. So I'm more like a Highlander 2. Sean Connery walks into a British tailor's shop sort of deal and pays for it with a pearl.
Nice.
But I had to get Highlander 2.
Very stylish.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. But I don't know if there's, besides she does a lot of adventure sport. I mean, base jumping, snowboarding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could do without those. I'd definitely go in for the spa.
Yeah.
At least elements of the spa.
And the sous chef.
Treatments.
Yeah.
And the sous chefing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be wanting to walk around the old town a little bit more.
Yeah.
And look at the other beautiful bits of architecture and sample some of the local pastries at the centuries old coffee shops.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'd probably be just walking around, maybe visit that glass factory that they missed out on, which honestly sounded pretty nice.
Yeah.
And probably doing some sketching.
Nice.
That would be fun with the pretty architecture.
I think
some snow landscapes, snowy landscapes.
Oh yes.
Yeah, for
Oh,
me,
yes.
I think, and like this is like you said, Ishtar. I think the way the movie unfolds, it works out well. But for me, I'd probably I'm a lot different than Georgia. I would have asked Sean out to begin with, but for me, I'd be like, "Hey, Sean, you want to come on my trip?" Like in the first place, I would have been like, "I'm dying in 3 weeks. I'm going on this trip to this like hotel. You want to come with?" But like, yeah, that'd probably be me.
I love that.
Yeah, you'd be throwing like the current character arc out
Yeah,
and have to
basically.
do a
Yes.
total page 1 rewrite or page 20 rewrite. Yeah.
Yeah, my movie would be considerably less suspenseful. Yeah, and probably need our X rating, maybe even. No.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be as wholesome. And it probably wouldn't be as much about her development as a person. So
Yeah. She needed to go through quite a crucible to have the transformation come about.
And is there more you want to say, Ishtar, about like the whole like the relationship between this movie and like your near-death experience, or like proximity to death as a doorway to living, as you put it in the notes? Is there more you want to elaborate on that, or?
Well, there are some parts of that which are damned difficult to explain in words. It's almost like when veterans, people who've been through a war, there are certain things that they've seen that it's hard to communicate. But it's a beautiful thing when people have their fears fall off. They didn't quite have that to the same extent with Georgia, because she's she has a diagnosis, so she has more of the proximity. So it happens more slowly, not as immediately. But no, I'm just rambling now. I don't have anything cogent
That's okay.
to offer at this moment.
I just wanted to let you get a chance to talk more about it if there was more you wanted to say. So if you're okay right now, that's okay.
Oh yeah, well I'll tell you what more I want to say. I have to add to my last holiday. If it took place in Karlovy Vary, I'd really want Rick Steves to show up and we can have dinner together.
Nice.
And it'd be Luna, myself, you, and Rick Steves. And,
nice.
Well,
Lee better come too then, because he loves Rick Steves.
Lee too. Yeah. We can all be part of his show.
Yep.
And
nice one.
He can be interviewing us.
I'll be like, keep on traveling.
Yeah. Keep on traveling. So
that's awesome.
And now for our special show, we're going to go where everybody's going, which is past the gates of death.
All right. Are there any last thoughts you had about any other aspect of the film?
Even though it's kind of a theme in so many things, characters having to overcome some fear is almost universal in plot arcs. At the same time, I wish to see more films explicitly about, kind of getting over the whole enchilada, ditching one's fear. Even though this movie isn't necessarily my perfect movie, it hits those notes enough that I was really pleased that they made it and that they went there.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my summation, is that I'd like to see more films like there's that Jeff Bridges film, Fearless?
Oh yeah, where he survives the plane crash.
He survives the plane crash.
Yeah.
I love that film. It's one of my favorite ones, and I'd love to see more of those.
Yeah. No, I agree. Those films are always so interesting. Yeah, maybe you need to write another film, Ishtar.
I'll get going.
Okay, so now we're going to come to the final part of our show, which is the double feature recommendations. And we've got a really interesting mix of double feature recommendations today. So first, for my double feature recommendations, I'm recommending mostly movies that have to do with the creators involved in this film. So first of all, I'm going to recommend another Queen Latifah movie, which is another romantic comedy with Queen Latifah. I think this one works better as a romantic comedy. Like Last Holiday is kind of more of a life-affirming, like self-development movie. We don't see a lot of the romance in Last Holiday, but Just Right is another movie where Queen Latifah is the romantic lead. And it's very much a rom-com, like very genre, but very well done, well written, and well acted. And I super recommend it. It's also kind of like a sports movie because Queen Latifah's character is a sports fan and she ends up falling in love with a sports player. And also, she's also like a sports rehabilitation therapist too. So it's a fun movie and it's well done. So that's my first one. Second recommendation, Deliver Us from Eva. So if you want to see LL Cool J in another romantic role, he plays opposite Gabrielle Union in that movie. And it's like 10 Things I Hate About You. It's a take on Taming of the Shrew. And it's less true to the story than 10 Things I Hate About You. So it's not, but it has some of the same themes where Gabrielle Union's like this lady that needs to be distracted from, the other people's love lives. And LL Cool J like gets to do some pretty cool things in that film, including at one point riding a horse. So
wow.
Yeah. So pretty fun. And then finally, I'm going to recommend another Wayne Wang film that I was able to see on the Criterion Collection, which is Dim Sum, A Little Bit of Heart. It is pretty much nothing like Last Holiday. I'm going to warn you right now. And if you're one of those people who wants an ending that's very neatly wrapped up, it's not that. But you really get to see Wayne Wang's talent with the camera and just some of the like scenes he decides to capture. It's very beautifully shot. And it has a lot of heart. Like it's about sort of a Chinese immigrant family and their life and love lives and health. And it's very quiet film and very beautifully done. So I think if you want to see some more of Wayne Wang's work, that's a nice place to start. So those are my recommendations.
So for my double feature recommendations, first of all, I have Office Space, which is a movie by Mike Judge. And I really love this movie. And the reason why I chose this one is because you also get to see the lives of ordinary characters where, people are having to deal with, what I would call a crummy job.
Yeah.
And also you have the satisfaction of quitting, a bit like what Georgia goes through. So that's a really fun one to explore. Then second, I have Yes Man, which we also mentioned, and it's from 2008. It features Jim Carrey and Zooey Deschanel. And I really love it because it also feels very life affirming, where our protagonist is maybe not living his life to the deepest of his abilities. He's kind of sort of detached almost, I would say. And so he kind of goes and sees this, gets roped into seeing this guru, like a life coach,
Terrence Stamp,
who is just amazing. And so then through circumstances, which are pretty funny, he basically ends up going deeper and engaging more with life and really putting himself out there. So that's really fun one too.
Yeah, and I was going to put that on my recommendations at first as well, because I think it has such the same spirit. And Ishtar, you and I saw that at the theater together.
We did. We saw it at the one across from the Lloyd Center.
Yeah, in Portland, Oregon. We loved that movie.
Portland, Oregon.
Yeah,
that was a great film.
Yeah,
that was a great time.
We will definitely cover that in the podcast in the future too. And Lee has demanded that if we do, that you be a host on that.
Yeah, well, I'll try to get in touch with Terrence too. See if we can rope him in.
Terrence Stamp, yeah dude.
Yeah.
We didn't mean to interrupt you, Luna.
No, that's good. Then for my third recommendation, I included a Japanese movie by director Itami Juzo. And this is Tampopo. So it's from 1985, I believe. And the movie centers a lot around food, which is why I'm pairing it with Last Holiday. So if you like food, it's pretty fun. It's a comedy. And it also features, one of the protagonists is a female, this lady who is trying to improve her Japanese ramen, because she has a ramen restaurant. And yeah, it's pretty cool if you haven't seen it.
I've meant to see that, so I'm definitely going to check it out now.
Yeah. I'm glad. If you watch it, I'd love to hear what you think of it.
Yeah, I'll get back to you.
And then for my last recommendation, I have Groundhog Day, which I also feel like it's very much related to the spirit of Last Holiday. A bit different, but it's a movie that I like to watch that always makes me feel good,
Yeah.
and inspired to live a better life. So, and that one features Bill Murray, who's an actor I like as well. So,
Phil Connors had to go through an awful lot of deaths to get to the same
yes. So a bit different from Georgia.
Yeah.
A lot of next times.
Yes. So a bit of a different approach there, how to get to, coming home to yourself.
Yes. Yeah.
Self-realization.
He had to try every way not to do it first.
Yes.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes. Okay, we're to my recommendations. I got to thin my list down a little bit, and I don't think I picked with as much care because that's not how I choose movies, anyways. So they don't all dovetail. They can clash. First, I'm actually going to start at the end of my list. I would absolutely pair this with Depardieu's Cyrano de Bergerac.
Mm.
I'd probably have to leave myself a food break in between them, just to kind of get myself energized, because of the very different feels, and yet here we have a character who lies to himself and everyone else, and it's only at the end, tragically, that the word gets out. It's very sad, somber, very different. But I have a great affection for Depardieu as an actor.
It's beautifully shot film too. Beautiful.
It is a beautifully shot film. It's gorgeous. Another one I might add, just for a food movie, I'll say, because you mentioned Babette's Feast, or we mentioned in the podcast, but I would choose either between Tortilla Soup or Eat, Drink, Man, Woman, the Taiwanese film that Tortilla Soup is based on, fairly faithfully. But they're both great films with wonderful performances. Just one takes place in sort of a Mexican-American family. One takes place in Taiwan. But if you want great food montages and food preparation montages, you can do no better than the beginning scene of both of those films. And both films are also really films in which you have a father who's got, I think, 3 or 4 daughters. I think it's 3. And all the 3 daughters basically have to find themselves.
Yeah.
That's the main arc of the film, is they get to find themselves, and the single dad, who's a widower, gets to sort of resolve their own, become resolved to their own place in life. So same with each, but beautiful food. Honorable mention before the final is any of Depardieu's Asterix and Obelix films. Just go have some fun with it. How Depardieu's known to millions of children, and it's through those films, all in French, and so English subtitles. But hearing Depardieu speak in French is very satisfying.
Yeah, it is nice.
And then I'll end with Fearless, which we mentioned in the podcast, with Jeff Bridges from the mid-90s, and basically a man who goes through basically a near-death experience, and comes out the other side without any of the sort of neurotic tendencies and fears that were marking his character's life before then. And you get to see how different his life is lived, and it's also the ramifications it has on his relationships with everyone. And we get to also see an ultimate resolution where he kind of learns how to. They're attempting it. They attempt to have him live in the world but not of it. So that's the Fearless.
Yeah. I think you have picked with thought. You've sold your picks short, Ishtar. So
oh well,
I'm inspired to watch your picks. Yeah. Anyway, so I'm really just can't thank you guys enough for coming on today. I know you've got a lot going on in your lives. But I want to remind the audience that if you want to find out more about Ishtar and his work, you can go to www.ascension-meditation.com or the astrology website, www.awakenedlightastrology.com. Look for those both in the show notes as well. And if you want to do some yoga with Luna, you can go to www.yogawithluna.com. com and also take advantage of that. And yeah, I'm so excited to have you guys on today. And I hope at some point in the future we can do another show together. And yeah, you guys are the best.
Well, thank you so much for having us.
And then finally, I'd just like to say that we're doing a couple more Christmas movies this season. After this episode, you can look forward to an episode on Netflix's new gay Christmas rom com, Single All the Way, which is actually dropping today. Like, I'm going to watch it later today and then podcast on it this weekend. So we're busy here. And then after that, we're going to be doing White Christmas with Sybil. We'll be coming on to talk about that. So yeah. Ooh. We've got a few more episodes to look forward to in our Christmas season. And Ishtar and Luna, I will definitely talk to you again before the holidays. So I won't say happy holidays. I'll just say talk to you soon. And listeners, hope you're having a great day.
Goodbye.
Bye. Thank you for listening.